Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see, what if Deku awakened forbidden art and fell for Chizuru? Part 1. This story is Defectuoso by Daily Viewer 1. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button, as your one like motivates me to bring more stories, and subscribe the channel if you are new so you won't miss our latest videos. Kitsunes. In the past, these mythological creatures inhabited the world alongside humans. Their coexistence wasn't the best, but both sides tried. But, suddenly, the Kitsunes disappeared. Since this happened millions of years ago, it remained a mere myth. Today, society has advanced so much that currently, 80% of the world's population has developed superhuman abilities, which are called quirks or gifts. Meanwhile, the other 20% of the world's population has not developed any kind of ability. These are called quirkless or giftless. As is common in these types of hierarchies, the rejection of this 20% is quite high. Few people are willing to live alongside them. But we'll focus on the city of Whatifdeku, specifically on a house where the protagonist of this story is located. Izuku Midoriya. Mom, how much longer? I'm so excited to find out what my quirk will be, said a small green-haired boy who approached his mother with great excitement. It won't be long now, Izuku. His mother replied with a smile. Well, I'm quite curious too. So, shall we go? Asked a white-haired man holding car keys. I suppose that's typical of you, isn't it, Hisashi? Inko said with a smile before approaching her husband. He chuckled slightly before giving his wife a kiss and a hug. Dad, shouted a little green-haired boy before jumping up and giving his father a hug. I missed you so much. When did you come back? The little boy asked while still hugging his father. I missed you too, Izuku. And I just got back. Shall we go? He asked again before receiving a nod from his family and leaving the house. On the way to the clinic, the little green-haired boy was very impatient, waiting for them to arrive. How much longer? The little boy asked. It won't be long now, maybe 10 minutes. His mother replied with a smile. Literally half a second later. How much longer? The little boy asked again. And so the little boy remained throughout the entire journey, every half second or a second, asking how much longer it would take. After a few minutes they finally arrived at the clinic, where they would finally find out what the little boy's quirk was. While Inko was talking at reception, little Izuku started wandering around the clinic. Izuku's goal was to find a water jug to get some water, as he was thirsty. His father hadn't noticed this, as he was busy with other things. As the little boy walked around the clinic, he didn't realize he had entered a door that said, "Authorized personnel only." Boss, I'm sorry to let you down, but we can't do anything if we don't have a test subject, said a person wearing a lab coat. Upon hearing that voice, which was quite deep, little Izuku ended up hiding. That's no longer my problem. Get that test subject as soon as possible. A voice, so deep it echoed throughout the room, said, coming from a screen. Yes, hey. Before he could finish, a noise was heard throughout the room. It was the little green-haired boy who hadn't noticed and tripped over a metal bar, and that sound echoed throughout the place. The person in the bathrobe glanced sideways and smiled slightly as they thought. I've found him, he thought with an evil smile before approaching the little boy. Hello, little one, you don't have to be scared, said the person with a smile, having noticed how the green-haired boy was trembling. You won't hurt me? The little boy asked, feeling scared. No, don't worry, the exit is over there, pointing to the spot. Okay, I'm leaving now. The little boy was about to turn around but was interrupted by a voice. Hey, kid, the man said before quickly pouring a blue bottle into a glass of water. Yes, the little boy asked with a smile. Aren't you thirsty? The man said as he handed the glass to the little boy. Yes, but my mom won't let me take anything from strangers, said the little boy, since he didn't know the person in front of him at all. That won't be a problem. Besides, this water is way cooler because of the dye. Isn't that great? You can brag to your friends that you drank blue water, the man said with an evil grin from behind his face mask. No thanks. I declined the small offer with a bow before walking towards the exit. You won't escape so easily, the man said before pulling out a small pistol and shooting the boy. Ouch, said the little boy before holding the wound. I think I got bitten by a mosquito, the green-haired boy whispered. Well, that's a shame. Goodbye, the man said before walking away and disappearing into the shadows of the room. After the little green-haired boy left, in the man's thoughts. Enjoy your free time, because that tracker will be very useful to me. She thought with a smile before continuing with her things. With Izuku, he had already drunk some water and was heading towards reception. When he arrived, he noticed his parents were looking for him, and the little boy approached them. You had us worried, Izuku, the white-haired man said with a smile before giving his son a hug. I'm sorry, the little boy apologized. Don't worry, we just need to go to office number 552 to find out what your quirk is. Inko said with a smile before taking her son's hand and leading him there. After a while they arrived at the location and the doctor was now performing some tests on Izuku. After a few minutes, the doctor opened the envelope containing the results. Your son is quirkless, he has no quirk, the doctor said coldly and directly. Izuku's heart had broken in that instant, as had his dreams. Part of him said he could still fulfill his dream of being a hero if he had his parents' support. He truly believed he would have it. After all, they were his parents, weren't they? Well, that hope he had was easily shattered by what his mother said next. What? This can't be possible, so I've been raising a defect all this time, exclaimed the little boy's mother, with great rage and anger. That's right, your son is scum, ma'am, the doctor said somewhat mockingly while chuckling slightly. This can't be possible, said the white-haired Hisashi, with a hint of regret in his voice, mixed with anger. Inko, I'm asking for a divorce. The letter will arrive at your house in a few days. After all, no one should know that my son is defective. Do you know what would happen to my hero career? Luckily, during all these years I've been with you, no one found out that we were married or had a child. Goodbye forever, the white-haired man said, leaving the place. You saw what you did, you damn brat. Inko said angrily. I'm sorry, mommy, the little boy said, his voice breaking with sadness. Tears streamed down his cheeks, increasing as his mother spoke to him. I don't need a useless son, Inko said to Izuku, who was just crying silently. The little boy couldn't speak anymore, a lump in his throat prevented him from talking. His head was down, his heart shattered, and he clenched his fists in frustration. Without saying anything else, Inko roughly grabbed Izuku's hand and led him out of the clinic. I hope I'm not unlucky enough to see you again, you scum. From this moment on, forget about me, forget that I'm your mother, or that I ever was. Goodbye forever. Defective, and those were Inko's last words before leaving the place in a rage and anger. After all, her marriage was lost, and her son turned out to be useless. But, Inko's words would be etched in Izuku's mind. Little by little, a huge feeling of hatred grew inside him. So I'm a flaw, huh? Izuku said in a whisper, but with a hint of hatred in his voice. The moment Inko abandoned Izuku on the street, he had no other option but to wander aimlessly. A flaw, the little boy thought as he walked aimlessly. Luckily, it was still daytime and there were quite a few people around, but no one came to help the little boy. Not even a hero. Why? The place where the little boy was a place where reporters never went. If there were no reporters, the heroes had no reason to be there. I'm hungry, said the little boy as he felt his stomach growling for food. After wandering the streets for hours, night finally fell. The little boy collapsed to the ground, his body throbbing with hunger and exhaustion. Why isn't anyone helping me? The little boy whispered as even more tears fell from his eyes. Hey, what are you doing here? A sweet and soft voice was heard in front of Izuku. When he looked up, he noticed that it was a girl his age. She had black eyes and jet black hair. It's none of your business, the little boy said, not seeing how a little girl his age could possibly help him, and besides, he didn't want her to find out he was quirkless. The little girl, somewhat indignant, was about to say something, but noticing the look the little boy had, she knew that instead of getting angry with him, she had to help him. Yes, after all, we're strangers. So from now on, we're friends. What do you think? Isn't that great? Asked the little raven-haired girl. She was about to continue speaking but was interrupted by the sound of the little boy's stomach. Are you hungry? The little girl asked, and Izuku gave a slight nod in response. Izuku watched as the little girl ran away from the place. "Well, I wasn't expecting anything," said the little boy before continuing to lie back on the floor. After a few minutes, he was about to close his eyes when he saw a sweet face with a beautiful smile looking into his eyes. "Here, eat," the raven-haired woman said with a smile before handing the little boy a bag. "What?" the little boy asked, somewhat doubtfully. "You're hungry, aren't you? Besides, I like to help," the girl said with a smile. Little Izuku, somewhat hesitant, took the bag and opened it. "Croissants and cupcakes," thought the little green-haired boy before he started eating. "I'm so jealous." The little girl was about to say something, but she couldn't because two bodyguards were quickly approaching them. "Well, it seems they've found me. See you later," the little girl said sadly before walking towards her bodyguards. Izuku watched as she walked away into the distance and simply continued eating with a smile. "Now that I think about it, I didn't ask his name," the little boy said before continuing to eat. After a few minutes, he was going to continue walking until the little boy could only see a van park before he began to close his eyes. Upon waking, he realized he was in some kind of laboratory. Izuku was inside what appeared to be a cell. "Where am I?" the little boy asked, quite agitated, as he grabbed the cell bars. "Finally you're awake," I heard a voice from outside the cell. The speaker was the same person in a bathrobe as before. "You again?" the little boy asked, feeling a bit more confident because he had already spoken with the person in front of him and they seemed to be quite friendly. Yes, the person replied. "Could you take me out of here and tell me what's going on?" the little boy asked. Ha ha ha, I think you're being stupid and naive right now. You know what, I think it would be a good idea to teach you a rule of life. Don't trust anyone," said the person in front of him before walking towards the exit. "What? Aghhhhh. A blood-curdling scream echoed throughout the laboratory. What was happening? The person in the lab coat had shot the little green-haired boy in the stomach. "Let's see if this regenerates you," the person whispered with a macabre smile. But nothing. More and more blood began to fall from the wound onto the ground. "Maybe I should try a larger amount. Yes, that's what I'll do," the person said before approaching the cell and opening it to take out Izuku, who had fainted from the pain. Little Izuku would open his eyes again. This time he found himself tied to a chair. "You took a long time to wake up. Your body hasn't changed at all, unfortunately, but your body hasn't exploded like I thought it would. I think I should investigate it further," the person said before taking out a blue vial. "What is?" The little boy couldn't finish speaking as he noticed the person injecting the vial into his body. "It'll be quick," he said with a macabre smile before noticing the little boy start to scream in pain. "Oops, I think I overdosed a little," he said, watching as the little boy kept screaming in pain. After a few minutes the pain finally ended and now Izuku was breathing heavily. "Thankfully you didn't faint this time. Could that be progress?" the person said, still with that creepy smile. Please. And no more," the little boy said, very exhausted. "What are you talking about? You'll be here for the rest of your days," the person said before leaving the place. Now Izuku found himself back in that cell. Unfortunately, there are no funds available for further research on this test subject. It seems the government didn't want to provide more funding for a simple defective quirkless individual, said the person in the lab coat, who thought Izuku was asleep. "Government," the little boy thought as he pretended to be asleep. "Well, this is sad. It seems I'll only be able to go by the physical changes in her body," the person said mockingly. The next day, a new day dawned. For some it would be a happy day, for some it was a boring day, and for others, it was a day full of suffering. One of those suffering during this day was the little green-haired boy who was currently doing a training regimen that his body could barely endure. If he can endure this hell, maybe he can get the government to give him more funds, but how clever of me. The person thought macabrely as he watched the little boy train. After a few minutes, the little boy would fall unconscious due to the enormous overload his body had to endure. "Not bad for a brat," the person said before taking the little boy to his cell. 1 week later. A week had passed, and since then Izuku's daily life had become 1. Receiving doses of that strange serum and 2. Receiving training that he could barely endure. As time went on, the doses increased, reaching a point where Izuku could only withstand half a dose before passing out. This caused the person in the lab coat to begin feeling disappointed. Perhaps I should get funding from somewhere else. The government no longer trusts the project, and today I'll have to contact the boss to tell him everything that's happened these past few days, the person in the lab coat thought until a voice sounded behind him. I preferred to come in person, said the voice behind the person in the lab coat. Boss. The person in the lab coat greeted him with a smile. How many times do I have to tell you to call me, sensei? Said a masked person who was standing behind the person in a lab coat. Yes, sensei, said the person in the lab coat with a smile. Will you tell me what you've been doing? Asked the sensei of the person in the lab coat. Yes, replied the person in the lab coat, pointing to the cell where Izuku was. He is test subject number 001. His body has accepted almost 100% of the legendary Kitsune's DNA. Although there's no noticeable physical change, I estimate that will change when his body fully accepts it, the person in the lab coat said. Alright, I'll stay and keep an eye on everything. How are the funds we requested from the government coming along? The sensei asked the person in the lab coat, who answered directly. They haven't given us any more funding. According to them, it's because they don't trust that a quirkless defective can withstand the DNA of the legendary Kitsune, said the person in the lab coat. I think you know what I think about that, don't you? The local sensei asked. Yes, I know, but I'll still take the risk, said the person in the lab coat. A few days later, several days had passed. Izuku's body already had 100% of the legendary Kitsune's DNA, but his body showed no apparent physical change. How's everything going? Asked the sensei of the person in the lab coat. The legendary Kitsune's DNA has been successfully accepted. The problem is, there are no physical changes, and we don't have the funds to run tests on his body, the other person replied. You know what I'm going to say, right? The boss asked, looking at the person in the lab coat. Yes, I think it was all for nothing. I was hoping it might work. But it seems it didn't. The person in the lab coat said with disappointment. He's useless, defective. His body was able to accept the DNA, but if there's no noticeable physical change, he's no use to us. Get rid of that trash, said the boss, unaware that the little green-haired boy was listening to the entire conversation. I know I'm useless. I know I'm a flaw. I know I'm just scum. Why is the world like this? I didn't choose this, the green-haired boy thought as some tears fell down his cheeks. As for what you'll do, no one else must know we failed. I'll try to sort this out with the government to get more funding. Just make sure no one finds out there was ever a test subject who failed. Understood, the head of the facility said and asked in an authoritarian tone. Yes, said the person in the lab coat. As soon as he said that, the head of the place came out. The person in the lab coat pulled out a file containing all of Izuku's progress. I wonder, what will I do with this? He said, looking at the file, then took out a pen and crossed out the name, test subject number 001, and wrote, test subject number 000. That's better. Now I have to hide this, he said, leaving the place. A few minutes later, the person in the lab coat would return to Izuku's cell and open it. Can I be Lee? The little boy couldn't finish because he fell unconscious thanks to an injection given to him by the person in the lab coat. I guess in the end, I expected a lot from a simple flaw, the person in the lab coat said before leaving the little green-haired boy who was unconscious. Small clarification. They'll use them from now on to make small time skips of hours or minutes and such. I'll only use the time skip X day, year, month for when times get long. They will be used when something important happens within a flashback, but none of it is explicitly stated. Example, a cemetery could be seen, and in it there was a person praying at a grave. So you're back, huh? Said the person praying at the grave before glancing sideways in the direction of a tree. And, at those points, a conversation between those two people could have taken place. I don't know if I'm explaining myself well, but it's a way to avoid spoilers. I'll use this mostly in flashbacks. Finally, if you see a message in bold, it's a point that may be important later on. Now then, let's get on with the chapter. Smiley face. A few hours after being abandoned, Izuku would finally wake up. Where am I? Murmured the little boy, whose vision was blurry. After a few minutes, the little boy could finally see clearly. Looking around, the little boy realized he was in what appeared to be a forest. I need food. I'm hungry, the green-haired boy said weakly before starting to walk through the forest in search of food. In that state, the little boy didn't think much about what he was doing and ended up getting even more lost than he already was. After walking for a few minutes, the little boy would fall to the ground, completely exhausted. If I keep going like this, I'll end up unconscious, said the little boy, who was slowly beginning to close his eyes. I'm not even good enough to find my own food, I'm so weak, said the little boy, but just as he was about to close his eyes. You're right, brat, you're very weak. At your age, I was already hunting my own food in this vast forest. That was the last thing Izuku heard before his eyes closed completely. Several hours had passed. The man who had spoken before little Izuku fell unconscious was sitting reading a book, while behind him, the little boy rested. Interesting. So you're awake now, huh? The man said before closing the book and resting his arms on the armrest of his chair. Where am I? The little boy whispered. In my old cabin, the man said before turning the chair around, revealing an old man of about 65 years old. That old man was in good shape for his age. The little boy was about to say something but was interrupted as his stomach began to rumble. I'll bring you something to eat, said the old man, getting up from his chair. Don't worry, it's not nay. The little boy couldn't finish because the old man interrupted him. Don't say anything, brat, the old man said before leaving the room. After a few minutes, the old man entered the room with a bowl of soup and gave it to the little boy, who happily began to eat. After a few minutes it would finally end and the old man would speak. Very well, you will sleep in this room, said the old man, who left the room without letting the green-haired boy say anything. This is strange. That's what the green-haired boy said before lying down on the bed. After a few minutes the little boy still couldn't fall asleep, so he gave up. Why can't I sleep? The green-haired boy said softly before getting out of bed and walking towards one of the bedroom windows. Looking out the window, he could see the old man in a meditative position. Izuku's eyes, which had previously been a dull green, would shine a little thanks to 5 lights that were illuminating the stomach of that old man. Each one had a different color. Impressive, said the little boy as he looked at the old man. The little boy was going to keep watching, but he couldn't continue because the old man suddenly looked in his direction. In response, the green-haired boy quickly hid and lay down on the bed. The next day, finally, a new day had arrived, and the green-haired boy was slowly waking up. Without saying a word or making any movement after opening his eyes, the door would open. Brat, come outside, the old man said to the green-haired boy, who simply obeyed. Once outside, the old man would speak. Take this, throwing a wooden sword in his direction. You will train with me, the old man said, making Izuku's eyes widen. And what would you gain from that? The little boy asked, not very trusting. I'd earn more than you can imagine. I'm doing this more for myself than for you, brat. I want you to keep that in mind. The old man said before getting into a fighting stance with a cardboard sword. He knows he'll easily beat me, right? After all, I'm just a flaw. Izuku said pessimistically. I won't know if that's true unless you train with me. Now come, I'll let you make the first move. The old man said as he assumed a defensive stance. The green-haired boy, with no other option, would launch himself towards the old man. The little boy was slowly opening his eyes. When he opened them fully, he could see the old man sitting on the grass in front of him, reading a book. So I lost, the little boy said with some sadness. Although he already knew he was going to lose, he was depressed. Yes, you lost consciousness, the old man said before closing the book. It doesn't surprise me, said the little boy, who was about to sit on the ground, but the old man spoke. Although it's strange, I have no memory of the fight. The green-haired boy thought thoughtfully. Who said you could rest? We have to keep going, the old man said before getting back into a fighting stance. The little boy would heed the old man's words and get into a fighting stance. Several hours had passed, and the green-haired boy was already tired. In each of their friendly matches, the old man won, while in all of them the little green-haired boy was knocked unconscious before landing the first blow. On the other hand, the old man was as fresh as a daisy. Despite his age, he wasn't even sweating. The green-haired boy finally opened his eyes and sat down on the floor. "Well, I suppose that's enough for today. Let's go inside," said the old man before walking towards the cabin as the little boy followed him. Izuku's POV. 2 years have passed since then. Nothing particularly significant has happened during this time. The old man behaves the same way he always has. And that strikes me as odd, even though he's become someone I could consider a father figure. Yes, a father. He has done a lot for me for a long time. Although he's not very sentimental. In fact, whenever he has the chance he always says that he trains me more for himself than for me, and that seems strange to me. Sometimes I see him training and those same lights appear. That seems strange to me. I guess it's probably his quirk. I also realized that this forest is located on the outskirts of Japan thanks to a map I found in the room. I always find the old man either training or reading. I've rarely seen him eating or doing anything else. He doesn't even talk about himself, and he hasn't asked me anything. Absolutely nothing. In fact, I don't think he even knows my name, and I don't know his either. There are no pictures or photos of him in the cabin. It seems as if he had lived there his whole life. When the old man and I have a confrontation, the same thing keeps happening to me. I lose consciousness and don't remember anything about the fight afterward. It gets to a point where it seems frustrating. As for my strength, I'm still just as weak. At most I'll be a little stronger thanks to the old man's training. Training which always leaves me exhausted. It was daytime and the little green-haired boy, now 6 years old, was sitting at the table, eating. On the other hand, the old man was sitting reading a book. "Why do you always read books, old man?" Izuku asked while taking a sip of juice. "Because I like them, that's the simple reason," the old man said before getting up from his chair. "Hurry up, we have to go train," the old man said, receiving a nod from Izuku. The little boy had finally finished eating and was now training alongside the old man. After a few hours, they had finally finished training and were now drinking some water. "I didn't know you drank water, old man," Izuku said somewhat mockingly, since he couldn't remember the last time he saw him drink water. In fact, it was likely he'd never seen him do it. "Shut up, brat. Your concentration should be directed towards more important things, like training," said the old man after taking a drink of water. "You're absolutely right. I'll go train," Izuku said before heading into the forest to continue his training. "You can come out now. I know you're there," the old man said once he lost sight of Izuku. Suddenly, 4 people were surrounding the old man. "How did they find me? I'm sure it was impossible for them to have done so," the old man said, looking at the 4 men in front of him. "That's simple, old man. We're just following the trail of your forbidden art, the grand and fabulous." I was going to continue but was interrupted. "You don't need to say more," said the old man, his eyes darkening. "Let's be realistic. Sooner or later we were going to find you, no matter how sneaky you might be." Another of the figures said with a mocking smile. "Yes, that's true. But still, do you think you can defeat me? Ha ha ha. Don't make me laugh," the old man said with a defiant smile. "Could you remind me what you were looking for? I think I've forgotten, given my old man's memory," the old man said with a mocking smile. "Ha ha ha. What a good joke, old man. The answer is simple. We're looking for your daughter, the heir to your forbidden art," one of the men said with a smile. "Ha ha ha. Didn't you realize? You fell into my trap. I wouldn't be so foolish as to leave such an obvious trail. Besides, you came here because you sensed my daughter's scent, didn't you?" The old man's smile grew wider and wider. "What are you talking about, you decrepit old man?" the same man asked, puzzled. "My daughter is right now in a place you'll never find. I left some trace of her to lure you into a trap. I knew you'd show up here sooner or later," the old man said, still smiling. "The truth is, reality is a little different," the old man thought, without losing that smile. "I have to admit, I didn't think you could still be that intelligent even in your old age, did you, Toki?" the man said with a calm smile. "You're absolutely right," said the old man before getting into a fighting stance. "Why so aggressive, Toki? How about you buy us a coffee first? The man said with a mocking smile. I don't think I can finish them off. I hope that at some point you realize the great power that emanates from within you, brat. These were the old man's last thoughts before launching himself into battle. The four men rushed at the old man, their attacks perfectly synchronized. It was as if they were connected. Have you gotten weaker? Ha ha ha, laughed one of the men who was practically beating the old man up. Fire magic. Fireball. The old man would create a large fireball and throw it at the four subjects. What a ridiculous idea. Why don't you use your forbidden art? Oh, right, you don't have it anymore, ha ha ha. One of the men laughed mockingly before appearing in front of the old man and delivering a powerful blow that sent him flying towards the cabin. Tisk. This is bad. If I keep going like this I'll die, the old man said before running at top speed towards one of the subjects. Not bad, for an old man you're pretty fast. Someone else would have broken their back by now. He laughed mockingly before pulling out a pistol and shooting him twice, once in the chest and once in the stomach. The old man would fall to the ground, unable to do anything. This is for the demon sunshine. Got it, you decrepit old man? One of the men asked mockingly. Ha, ha, ha. The demon sunshine, I couldn't care less. His stupid goal of stealing the 5 forbidden arts is doomed, the old man said with some difficulty while coughing up some blood. I think you're stupid. We just killed you. You were the only one who could stand up to us. But now you're dead. We'll find your bratty daughter very soon, the man said, but in response, the old man just laughed. Her, maybe, but she won't be the only one to finish you off, the old man said with some difficulty. So, who is this other somebody? Nobody, right? The man was about to continue but couldn't finish speaking as he was interrupted by a voice. Old man. The voice came from a green-haired boy who had just finished his training. Was that the one you meant? Don't make me laugh. Ashley, try the machine. I don't think the old man is that stupid, the man said, and Ashley pulled out a device that, seconds later, showed a green light. So he's the one with the art, isn't he? Or should I say, half of it? The man said with a mocking smile. I guess we just have to get rid of him, the man said with a smile. Old man. Izuku ran towards the old man, who whispered for him to stop. But it was too late, the men had surrounded him. Run away, brat, the old man shouted at Izuku, who couldn't say anything because. So you're still alive, you damn worm, the man said before pulling out his weapon and shooting him again, this time near the heart. Upon witnessing that, Izuku's eyes began to flicker between a light blue and a dull green. Do you think that scares us? The man asked with a mocking smile. I should. That thing almost killed me many times, the old man thought as he remembered. Flashback. It was Toki and Izuku's first confrontation. As the fight began, Izuku's eyes changed to a slightly dull sky blue, claws grew from his hands, and he easily dodged Toki's sword strikes. What the hell is that? I've never seen anything like it before, he thought, but while he was distracted, Izuku delivered a powerful blow that sent him flying into a tree. The blow was so hard that he couldn't get up. Luckily, Izuku had just lost consciousness. When Izuku woke up, he decided to tell her that he was the winner, so that Izuku could concentrate on his training and improve. This wasn't the only time Toki saw that. The same thing had happened in every confrontation. End of flashback. Izuku's pupils had also changed. They were now slit-like. His hair also stood on end slightly and turned a bluish color. He had also grown claws. Izuku would run at great speed towards the subjects and begin to fight. Although he was outnumbered, that didn't change the fact that he was winning by a considerable margin. Izuku would scratch them with his claws, leaving a blue fire mark on his victims. The fire began to increase little by little, until it reached a point where the subjects had to cut off their arms because if it continued like that it would probably end up killing them. We have to run, said one of the men, receiving nods of agreement from the rest, who then fired a smoke bomb and disappeared. Izuku would fall to his knees on the ground. The old man, with what little strength he had left, approached Izuku. He would put one of his hands in his back pocket and take out a piece of paper, then leave it as close to Izuku as possible. He, when you read it, please, take care of it. And those were Toki's last words as he fell to the ground, dead. Izuku would fall unconscious and end up collapsed on the ground. A few hours had passed and Izuku was waking up. When he opened his eyes completely, he could see that there was a piece of paper next to him. What happened? The green-haired boy thought before seeing in front of him the lifeless body of the one who had once been his teacher. Masters. After seeing his master's dead body, he was distraught until he remembered what had just happened. Now I understand. Who were those guys? Izuku thought before grabbing the letter. Dear brat, if you're seeing this, it's probably because I'm already dead. Where do I even begin? My name is Toki Minoko. The first time I saw you, I had no idea you'd become so important to me. Your training began with the goal of you inheriting my ability, my power. Initially, my plan was to give that power to my daughter, but she was too young to receive it all. That's why I gave half to you. I couldn't wait much longer since those guys were already close. To train with this power, you need a few things I never had, so I was never able to teach you how to use it. That's why I want you to do something for me, kid. I want you to find my daughter and train together so you can both master that power. She was adopted by a family called Ichinos. This family is in danger because of a criminal group that calls itself Human Destroyer. Unfortunately, I can't do anything anymore, so please take care of her. She's in ############################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################################### want to know more about me, if you need any kind of help, you can look in the basement of the cabin. At Toki Minoko. After reading the letter, Izuku would get up from the ground and walk towards the cabin. Want to know more about you, huh? That old man, Izuku muttered under his breath as he went down the stairs to the basement. Once in the basement, the green-haired boy headed towards an area that contained a sort of library. There was also a small safe nearby. I've never been to this place before, the green-haired boy murmured softly as he checked the books. After reviewing the books, I separated the ones that looked interesting from those that seemed a bit boring. I should never judge a book by its cover, but please, what's with furry experience? You old pervert, the green-haired man muttered under his breath before turning his gaze towards the safe that was nearby. What is this? The green-haired boy murmured softly as he approached the safe. When he tried to open it, he noticed that it had a password. Which one will it be? She said softly before looking at a painting in the room. Why would he put the password on such a strange painting? The green-haired boy wondered, observing the painting in front of him. Why was the painting strange? Well, perhaps the word, strange, was too strong to describe it. It was rather odd, because on the left side, one could see a sun. It was odd because the sun was literally shining, not just because of the paint. On the right, a moon, just like with the sun. And in the center, there was what appeared to be an eclipse. Never mind, I murmured softly as I entered the password into the safe. Upon opening the safe, there were 2 books. Izuku would take one of them. A diary, and, what's that book? The green-haired boy wondered, looking at a book that looked quite old. Without thinking much about it, he would put both books, along with the others he had already taken out, in a backpack that was in the basement. Once everything was ready, he would prepare to leave the basement. Once outside, I knew I had something to do. A few hours had passed, and Izuku had already finished what he was doing. Rest in peace, old man, said Izuku, who was praying at a grave he had just finished. After praying, Izuku would get up and start walking in a specific direction in the forest. 2 years living in this forest and training in it, I know it like the back of my hand. The green-haired boy thought before starting to run. Almost an hour had passed since he started running. Finally, the road could be seen, a sign that he was close to leaving the forest. Once he was finally on the road, he had no idea where he was going. Right or left? I thought indecisively about where I would go. My intuition tells me to go right, I'll go that way. The green-haired boy thought, and once he had decided, he would start walking in that direction. I'm so hungry, thought the green-haired boy, who had been walking for 2 hours and was already starving. I will hunt my own food, he murmured softly, remembering his master's teachings. Izuku would hide in a bush and a few minutes later he would see a rabbit passing by. Gotcha, he said, jumping towards the rabbit, but he couldn't do much because it escaped. I don't even have the energy to catch a rabbit. That was the last thing he said as he noticed his eyes slowly closing. A few hours had passed, and Izuku was waking up. Once he was awake, he could see that there was a bag next to him. He curiously opened that bag. Croissants, she exclaimed, eyeing the delicious pastries. Who could have left that here? The green-haired boy wondered as he ate. After eating, the green-haired boy resumed his journey. A few hours had passed, and Izuku was on the outskirts of Japan. Okay, first of all I have to find that family, thought the green-haired boy, who would begin walking in search of that family. Where do I begin? The green-haired boy wondered as he crossed a road. The little green-haired boy failed to notice a car approaching him at high speed. The green-haired boy could not avoid being run over by that car. I killed him, the driver shouted, clearly frightened. You're an idiot, said the woman who appeared to be the driver's wife. Kaya, don't talk like that in front of your daughter, said the woman who appeared to be the family's grandmother. Instead of talking, they should check that everything is all right, said a little girl of about 6 years old. I think little Chizuru is more mature than her mother, the old woman joked as she hugged her granddaughter. The couple got out of the car to check if the little boy was okay. How lucky. From what I can see, he's still alive, said the adult who would carry the little boy. It seems he's only unconscious. The woman sighed in relief, then followed her husband and hit him on the head. Ouch, what was that about? He asked, rubbing his head. And you still ask? The woman shouted angrily, crossing her arms. Sorry. The adult apologized before getting into the car. And how is the little one? The old woman asked. Fortunately, she's only unconscious, the woman said, to which the old woman responded with a sigh. It's impossible for a child my age to survive something like that. He's just unconscious, something's definitely going on here. Little Chizuru thought analytically. Perhaps she has a powerful gift, but even so, it shouldn't be so developed, the little girl thought. Anyway, we need to take him to the doctor, the woman said, sounding somewhat worried. Better not, we'll take care of him at home, said the grandmother, surprising everyone else. What are you talking about, grandmother? The man asked. He's just unconscious, we'll take care of him, grandma replied. Whatever, the woman said. I agree, said the man who would start driving the car. Isn't that a little irresponsible? The girl wondered to herself. Elsewhere, 4 people could be seen who appeared to be in a meeting. I can't believe some damn brat did this to us, he said, noticing he was missing an arm. That's not the important thing, we can rebuild it, one of the subjects said. Well, at least we know who has the art, another of the subjects said. They were going to continue arguing, but the door would be open. There was a person at the door who exuded a great air of superiority. Boss, they all shouted before getting down on their knees. Were they able to get hold of the art? The boss of the place asked bluntly. Unfortunately not, but we know who has the art, said one of the men, but they're useless, they're no good to me anymore, said the boss, who then pulled out a gun and began shooting at the 4 men. Boss, murmured one of the subjects who was still alive in a low voice. Dear Ashley, if you tell me who has the art, I'll let you live, said the boss with a kind smile. It's owned by a kid who's about 6 years old, he has green hair, green eyes and freckles, said the one now known as Ashley. Well, as promised, I'll let you live, after all, you're still useful to me, the boss said before leaving the place. Elsewhere, the little green-haired boy was finally waking up. Where am I? The little boy murmured softly before realizing he was in a room. I see you're awake now, said a brown-haired girl who was sitting in a chair to the right of the bed. What's your name? The green-haired boy asked, somewhat curious. I'm the one who asks the questions, said the little girl with a superior tone. How could you survive something like being hit by a car and just walk away unconscious? What kind of gift do you have? The little girl asked, to which Izuku simply replied. I don't have a quirk. If I survived that, I guess I was just lucky. The green-haired boy said, to which the girl simply nodded. You don't have a quirk either? The little girl asked in a low voice, which surprised Izuku a little. No, I don't have a quirk, he said, to which the little girl hugged him somewhat tightly. I thought I'd never find someone like me, she said as a few tears fell from her eyes. What's happening? Before he seemed like someone who would give me a lot of trouble. Izuku wondered to himself. A few minutes had passed and the little girl had finally calmed down. She was going to sit down again. By the way, what's your name? The girl asked, this time in a friendlier tone. Izuku. The green-haired boy introduced himself, and the girl curiously asked. Just Izuku. Don't you have a last name? The girl asked with some curiosity. No, I don't have one. But that's not important. And what's your name? The green-haired boy asked with a forced smile that the little girl noticed. My name is Chizuru Ichinose. Introducing herself, now known as Chizuru Ichinose. Finding her was faster than I thought. The green-haired boy thought with a satisfied smile. They were going to continue talking, but the green-haired boy's stomach began to rumble. I'll go get you some food, the little girl said kindly, to which Izuku simply nodded. Thank you. The green-haired boy replied gratefully to the little girl. You're welcome, the little girl replied with a smile. A few minutes had already passed. Izuku, along with the Ichinose family, were having dinner. I need to think of something so I can tell Chizuru the truth. Izuku thought thoughtfully, but I don't want to ruin this family's happiness either. The green-haired boy thought, seeing how happy and cheerful the Ichinose family looked. For now, I think I'll train. When I see the opportunity, I'll tell Chizuru about what the old man told me. The green-haired boy thought as he continued eating. By the way, kid, what were you doing walking alone? Where are your parents? The father of the family asked. That question caused Izuku to make a small, hateful face for a few seconds. It wasn't more than a second before that hateful sneer faded into a sad expression. Chizuru had some theories about what was going on, because when they had that conversation not long ago, Izuku never mentioned his last name. He simply told her to just call him Izuku. Izuku didn't want to cause any trouble or disrupt the atmosphere, besides, they were complete strangers to him. The only thing that mattered was Chizuru Ichinose. In a way, she was his mission. So he did the first thing that came to mind, he lied. I am an orphan. Saying that, he thought it wouldn't cause any change in the atmosphere, since it was partly true, he was an orphan. But compared to the whole truth, that was nothing. That's why, when he said that, the atmosphere changed slightly. Since when? The mother of the family asked, quite worried that it had been a long time. If Toki Minoko was a father figure to Izuku, it's only been a week. And for Izuku, Toki was indeed a father figure. But he couldn't say exactly what was happening, they were practically strangers. In any case, he only cared that one person at that table knew, and even then, it wasn't something he'd tell Chizuru Ichinose, at least not for now. Even so, he managed to escape from that situation. Well, I've been an orphan since I was 4. Although part of what he said was true, he didn't really want them to know about Toki Minoko's existence. He wanted to avoid those questions in case he accidentally said something he shouldn't. Good heavens, have you survived all this time alone? Asked the grandmother, her hands covering her mouth, feeling a pang of sadness for the little boy. Well, you could say that, the green-haired boy said, attempting to force a smile to please them, which worked, sort of, since Chizuru had noticed. She'd have time later to ask him about the reason for his smile. What do you think about us adopting you? That's what the adult in the family said. He hadn't spoken for a while, as he was still processing everything. It's not necessary, Izuku replied instantly, as he didn't want to create any kind of expense for that family. Don't worry. To be honest, I feel a little guilty for hitting you. But who knows, maybe it was fate, wasn't it? The adult said with a smile, to which Izuku couldn't deny and simply nodded. Thank you, Izuku said, this time with a small smile, but unlike before, this was a real smile. Okay, we'll go get the paperwork in a week, the wife said, her voice filled with emotion. Elsewhere, how are you finding his trail, Ashley? Asked a man in an elegant suit. All right, boss, I managed to hack into the security cameras all over the city, and it looks like I finally have a lead, Ashley said with a smile. Very good, keep it up, Ashley. The boss said with a smile. Soon you will be mine. Astral devastation, the boss thought with an evil smile. Back with Izuku. The next day, Finally, a new day had arrived, and the green-haired boy was now waking up. Today I'll begin training to use the art. But how will I be able to train it? Izuku wondered to himself before letting out a sigh of frustration. It didn't take long for her to remember the backpack in which she kept those 2 books she had taken with her. With some hope that the steps to use the art were there, she approached the backpack. I would open one of the books, and in it one could observe how it seemed to be in a strange language. What language is this, and why do I understand it? That's what the green-haired boy wondered, noticing that he could understand what was written in the book. To understand how this ability works, you must see it as a part of you. As if it were a limb. Once you understand that, you will be ready to learn this art. The green-haired boy read this in a low voice. The more he read, the more lost he became in the text. This will do. That's what the green-haired boy said before getting out of bed and leaving the house. Once he was outside, he would start running towards a place where he could train in peace. Fortunately, it was quite early and the Ichino's family was still asleep. Once he reached a quieter place, he would begin his training. This place was a trash-strewn beach called Dagoba. The first thing the green-haired boy did was assume the lotus position. According to my teacher, meditation is important. Although, well, I wouldn't do it if it weren't for the fact that the first page says I should meditate. The green-haired boy thought as he meditated. Suddenly, the green-haired boy began to feel 2 balls that shone inside him. If he had to give them names, they would be like Little Sun and Little Moon. If I remember correctly, I have to make them both face each other and form something like an eclipse. The green-haired boy thought as he began trying to bring the 2 balls together. And well, he failed. He had lost his concentration. So he kept trying for a few hours, until he finally gave up. I'm pathetic. That's what the green-haired boy thought as he lay on the sand. Izuku would grab that book and throw it down in frustration. The book would end up falling near the feet of a person passing by, more specifically, a girl a little older than him. So you'll give up that easily? A voice was heard near Izuku. This voice came from a girl about 8 years old. She had blue hair that reached her waist, blue eyes, and an innocent look. Who are you? The green-haired boy asked before getting up from the sand with a frown. Come on, don't be so hostile, the girl said with a smile, which calmed Izuku down a little. No, I have no plans to give up. That's what Izuku said in response to the girl's question. So what will you do? Will you just stand there doing nothing? The girl said with a slightly defiant smile. No, I don't plan to. Izuku said softly. Then, here. The girl approached the green-haired boy, but not before taking the book back to him. Thank you, replied the green-haired boy with a small smile. By the way, what's your gift? What's your name? How old are you? You look younger than me. These and more questions began to rain down on the green-haired boy. I don't have a gift. I understand if you don't want to talk to me anymore, it's... Izuku was about to continue but received a hug from the girl. Don't worry about it, you're my friend, aren't you? That's what the girl said with a smile. Friends? The green-haired boy wondered. Yes, friends. Or aren't you my friend? The girl asked, sounding a little sad. Yes, we're friends. The green-haired boy replied, this time with a slightly bigger smile. Now that I think about it, I have to go. See you later. The little girl waved goodbye with a smile before running off. You didn't tell me your name. Izuku shouted from afar, but the girl didn't hear him. Well, it doesn't matter. I'll probably see her again. For now, I'll focus on my training. That's what the green-haired boy said before grabbing the book that, by chance, had been left open to a certain page. This art can also awaken in other ways, some more effective than others. Among them are strong emotions, performing a dance precisely when an eclipse is passing, meditation, but there is one that stands out above all of them. Hatred towards something specific. The green-haired boy would read this before continuing with the training. Among those, I think the most effective is meditation. The green-haired man thought before assuming the lotus position. Elsewhere, how are you doing, Ashley? Asked the same guy as before. I found him, sir. That boy is in. That boy is in. Hash 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 hash. That's what Ashley said, to which the man in front of him, who was his boss, showed a terrifying smile. "Good work, Ashley, but I already have an idea in mind." That's what the guy said with a terrifying smile. Elsewhere, a few hours had already passed. The green-haired man was finishing his meditation. "This time I was closer. But I have to go back now, I hope they're not awake." That's what the green-haired boy thought before starting to run towards the place. While running, he couldn't avoid tripping over a little girl. When he looked up, he could see that the girl was Chizuru, who had been looking for him for quite some time. "Where were you?" That was the first thing Chizuru said when she saw him. When Izuku saw Chizuru like that, he got scared, because she was a little scary. I was around. Yeah, around. Ha ha ha. The green-haired boy laughed in a very forced way, earning himself a smack on the ear from Chizuru. "We were worried sick. I thought something bad had happened to you," Chizuru said before giving the green-haired boy a hug. "What are you doing?" Izuku asked, blushing slightly with embarrassment, since they had only met yesterday and he was already receiving hugs. "It's the least I deserve, you fool," Chizuru said with a small smile. "How about we go back home?" Izuku said, because he was already hungry. "Well," Chizuru replied. So they both started walking. As they walked, Izuku noticed Chizuru looking in a specific direction. It was a park that was nearby. "Do you want to go to the park?" Izuku asked, somewhat curious. "It's not like I want to go," Chizuru said in a somewhat tsundere tone. Izuku would take Chizuru's hand and led her towards the park. "Let's have some fun, Chizuru-chan." That's what the green-haired boy said, much to the surprise of the brunette, who blushed slightly at the nickname. "Of course, Izuku-kun." That's what Chizuru said in response with a smile. They would both approach the park and begin to play. While they were playing, the green-haired boy felt the urge to go to the bathroom. "I'll be right back, Chizuru-chan. I need to use the restroom," said the green-haired boy, who received a nod from the brunette in response. "Of course. Don't delay, Izuku-kun," Chizuru said with a smile. After a few minutes, Izuku returned, but what he saw angered him greatly. In front of him, he could see a gray-haired man intimidating his friend and someone else. "And what will you do, huh? Damn quirkless girls. You're just a hindrance to those who will truly be heroes," the ash-haired boy said, intimidating both girls. Upon seeing this, the green-haired boy quickly approached and stood in front of his friend and the stranger. "Ka-ka-chan." That's what the green-haired boy said when he saw the face of the person in front of him. "Oh, look who we have here. It's the useless one they abandoned." The ash-blonde's words shocked Chizuru, who didn't understand what was happening. "Leave them alone," shouted the green-haired boy angrily, frowning. "Or what? You're just a weakling without a quirk. Or why else do you think they abandoned you?" the ash-haired boy said as he slowly approached to attack the green-haired boy. Izuku's gaze was gloomy as he stared down at the ground. "You're just a useless, defective fool, just like those weaklings you protect," the ash-haired man said arrogantly. Izuku didn't really care that they insulted him. But he wasn't the only one. There was someone else. Chizuru didn't like it when her friend's feelings were hurt. In fact, from the moment the ash-haired boy started insulting the green-haired boy, she was getting angrier and angrier. And the moment I hear the last thing said by the ash-haired boy, Chizuru, and Izuku, well. Don't you dare call her that. Don't you dare call him that. They both shouted in unison before delivering a powerful blow to the ash-haired man. The ash-haired boy would quickly get up and begin preparing an explosion with his quirk towards both of them. "Shiny," he shouted before launching that explosion. Izuku would dodge that explosion with some difficulty and deliver a strong blow to the ash-haired boy. "The old man's training worked for me," the green-haired man said before he began repeatedly punching the ash-haired man in the face. "You think you can stop me with such weak blows, you damn Deku?" The ash-haired boy shouted before beginning to charge another explosion towards the green-haired boy. Once the explosion was about to be launched, Chizuru pushed the green-haired boy and took the blast herself. "Chizuru!" the green-haired boy shouted as he saw her take the blast. Izuku caught a glimpse of the ash-blonde boy still sporting that arrogant smile and that look that filled Izuku with disgust. "Nobody told you to get involved, you damn whore." The ash-haired man couldn't finish because a powerful right hook hit his face. The impact was so incredibly strong that it ended up knocking down the tree the ash-haired bird hit. Izuku would appear quite quickly in front of the ash-haired boy. Izuku would deliver another blow, this time to the ash-haired boy's stomach, leaving a yellowish trail. That blow would knock the ash-haired boy unconscious, and the green-haired boy would fall to his knees on the ground. What was that? I've never hit so hard, the green-haired boy murmured before being surprised by a tight hug. You idiot. Don't ever worry me like that again, said Chizuru, who was hugging the freckled boy. Behind them was the other girl who had also been saved by the green-haired boy from being harmed by the explosion maniac. Thank you, the girl said softly. This girl had short, yellow hair and bright blue eyes. Don't worry, Izuku replied with some difficulty. Are you okay? The blonde asked as she timidly approached the green-haired boy. Yes, don't worry, are you all right? The green-haired boy asked before getting up, as did Chizuru. I am, thanks to you, the girl replied with a smile. So that's all that matters, the green-haired boy said with a small smile. The girl, in gratitude, gave the green-haired boy a hug and a small peck on the cheek, causing some jealousy in a brunette. Nice to meet you, my name is Mami Nanami, introduced the now well-known Mami Nanami. Small clarification. Regarding Mami's two-faced personality, this will be changed. She will only have a similar or the same personality with a stranger or someone she dislikes. And that will happen when they grow up. Nice to meet you, Mami Nanami. My name is Izuku. Izuku introduced himself to the redhead, shaking her hand. Nice to meet you, Izuku. Mami said, taking his hand. My name is Chizuru Ichinos, nice to meet you. Chizuru introduces herself. Nice to meet you, Chizuru. Just like with Izuku, I'd also shake her hand. A few minutes had passed and Mami had already left. They spent some time playing together and now Izuku and Chizuru were arriving home. Why am I feeling a bad feeling? That's what Izuku wondered in his mind. By the way, Izuku-chan, because that ash-blonde guy was saying that. Chizuru couldn't finish because she saw a lot of police officers and paramedics near Chizuru's parents' house. The two children, with little choice, ran towards the place where the police officers and paramedics were. Upon arriving, filled with fear and apprehension, they approached where some tapes were located. They ignored those tapes, and what they saw left them in shock. In front of them were Chizuru's parents and grandmother, who had a sheet covering their faces, and there was also a lot of blood at the scene. What happened here? Both boys asked in unison, agitated. One of the police officers who was near them spoke. A criminal group calling itself Human Destroyer killed everyone in the house because they had scores to settle with them, the police officer explained. That's right, it said so in the old man's letter. Damn it, Izuku shouted inwardly, completely annoyed with himself. I had to take care of them, I had to protect them. I'm a damn useless idiot. Suddenly the green-haired boy felt arms wrap around him. Please hug me, I don't want to lose you too. Little Chizuru, like the green-haired boy, was crying. Izuku returned the hug tightly, as if he never wanted to let her go. I'll finish off that damned organization, I'll destroy them one by one. Hymen Destroyer, I'll make you regret what you just did like there's no tomorrow. Izuku's green eyes had become a little duller than before, his gaze now seemed to hold a lot of pent-up hatred, his inner voice was now more serious. Even so, not a single tear had fallen from his eyes. At most, he had a lot of pent-up hatred and felt angry with himself for not having been able to do anything. Something interesting was happening inside Izuku. Two orbs were getting closer and closer. At the same time, both orbs were gradually growing larger, until they resembled soccer balls. Finally, one of the orbs would completely cover the brighter one, creating something akin to an eclipse. Elsewhere, several individuals could be seen gathered in what appeared to be a meeting room. And how did it go? One of the subjects asked. Okay, boss, but I still don't understand, why let Hymen Destroyer do the job? Ashley Wood asked. My plan was to lure the Astral Devastation user towards us. Finding information on Hymen Destroyer is easier than finding information on the Demon Sunshine, so this will make things easier for us. The man would turn his chair around, with a malevolent smile. And how could that help us? Ashley asked, very curious. Help, He's not helping us. I want him to feel pain and suffering. After all, he's the one who defeated my favorite subordinate. He said with a smile on his face. Am I your favorite sub-subordinate? Ashley stammered with an excited smile. You wish. I'm only doing this because you're still useful to me. The boss thought to himself with a smile. Yes, Ashley, we'll soon have all the forbidden arts. The boss said with a smile. Back with Izuku. Izuku was still hugging Chizuru, who didn't want to let go of him. She didn't seem to want to. Izuku could see the deep sadness in Chizuru's eyes. It was truly profound. And that only fueled his burning desire to destroy the criminal group that had caused this reaction in Chizuru. Your time is up, Hyman Destroyer, the green-haired man thought with a lot of hatred in his eyes as he continued to hug Chizuru. But the green-haired boy wasn't the only one with so much pent-up hatred. Chizuru was going through something very similar. Little Izuku was comforting the brunette after the loss of her family. Why can't I do anything? The little girl sobbed, completely devastated. What will happen to us? The brunette wondered as she cried. Izuku simply hugged the little girl. As he did so, his gaze was distant. Come on, Chizuru-chan, the green-haired boy whispered, watching as some police officers approached them. Izuku didn't want to be adopted by strangers. Moreover, he wanted revenge, and he wouldn't get it that way. Chizuru didn't answer, she simply gave a slight nod. Izuku would take the brunette's hand and they would both start running as fast as possible. After a few minutes, Chizuru was already getting tired, and it was noticeable, as they were getting closer and closer to being caught. With some luck they were able to escape and now found themselves in an alley. Izuku, where will we go? Chizuru whispered, still crying. Let's go to the forest. Once we get there, I have something to tell you, said the green-haired boy, receiving a nod from the brunette. After a few minutes of running, both of their stomachs began to rumble, and they were still nowhere near the forest. Stay here, Chizuru-chan. I'll go get some food, the green-haired boy said, which startled the brunette a little. Can I go with you? The brunette asked, her head slightly lowered. No, they might still be nearby, so it's best if only one of us takes the risk. The green-haired boy said, and the brunette nodded. Okay, please don't be long, the brunette said, to which the green-haired boy replied. Don't worry, I'll be back as fast as I can, the green-haired boy said before starting to run off in search of some food. So she's gone now, said a voice that emerged from the darkness. Help, Chizuru had cried out for help upon seeing the person in front of her. This person didn't seem to have good intentions, covering her mouth to prevent her from continuing to call for help. Don't be afraid, the man said to Chizuru. His words only served to instill more fear in her. Who are you? Chizuru asked fearfully. I'll be direct with you. My name is Soda and I belong to Hyman Destroyer, said the person in front of Chizuru. The moment Chizuru heard where she belonged, she would launch herself against Soda. He would easily dodge her blows. Damn you, Chizuru screamed as she was subdued by that man. Hey, at least listen to me, said that guy while he subdued Chizuru. Chizuru had no other option but to listen to whatever that guy had to say. What do you want? Chizuru asked without making a move. That's what I like to hear. What I want is simple. I want that boy, I want Izuku. And I want you too, the man said with a terrifying smile. I refuse. I'm not interested in going with you, and I won't hand Izuku over to you either, Chizuru said instantly, without even thinking. Ha ha ha. Honestly, that was the answer I was expecting, the man said with a smile. So, Chizuru asked, what would you do if I told you that your parents died because of Izuku? That man lied, and Chizuru suspected it was a lie. Although not everything was a lie. In part, it was true. Thanks to Izuku, they knew their location. But they already knew that location. The Ichino's family's days were numbered long before, due to the debt they owed to him and Destroyer. But this was something Chizuru was completely unaware of. I don't believe you, Chizuru replied in a serious tone. Well, I guess that's normal. But do you have any idea what that boy is hiding from you? The man asked, already knowing the answer. What are you hiding from me? Chizuru asked, somewhat fearfully. The truth about your biological father, said the man who already knew who Chizuru was. How did she find out? Well, thanks to the machine Ashley used to discover that Izuku possessed the astral devastation. She realized that Ashley had half of the astral devastation and simply connected the dots. I'll definitely get a promotion when everyone finds out who the astral devastation user is. That kid was such a fool. Sota thought with an evil grin. Biological father. What are you talking about? Chizuru asked doubtfully, as she already suspected that they weren't her real parents, since they didn't share many similarities. I'll tell you more if you come with us. You're hungry, aren't you? How about this? Sota said before showing her some bread she had in a bag. I refuse. If Izuku is hiding something like that from me, it's for a reason. I'd rather hear it from him than from my enemy, Chizuru replied before roughly pulling away from the grip. Then it'll be the hard way. The man shouted before grabbing Chizuru by the neck and slamming her against a wall. Blood trickled from Chizuru's forehead after the blow. Luckily, there were some bricks near the alley. I have to get closer to those bricks. Chizuru thought before starting to run towards them, but all she received was a hard blow from Sota. Chizuru would fall near the bricks and with some difficulty pick one up. What do you think you'll do with a simple brick, huh? Sota shouted, his words dripping with mockery. Chizuru wouldn't say anything and would simply throw the brick towards Sota, but since she was only a 6-year-old girl, it wouldn't even land near him. Sota laughed at this before slowly approaching Chizuru. This is the end for you, Sota said, but he couldn't help but be surprised to see Chizuru's fists glowing yellow. I see, this will be exciting. Come to me, astral devastation user. Sota shouted wildly as he saw Chizuru running towards him. As he was about to hit Sota's face with his fist, Sota's hands would begin to glow red. Bloody art. Gore/combo. Sota shouted before launching a powerful scratch in Chizuru's direction. Chizuru would end up dodging the attack by the narrowest of margins, an attack that would make her bleed on her right arm, but this did not stop her. Damn, I shouldn't have held back so much. Sota thought before receiving the impact of Chizuru's blow which would make him stumble back. I see you haven't trained him yet, but you've still hurt me. You should be proud of your immense talent. After all, you don't always get the chance to fight the strongest member of Hymen Destroyer. The man said this while regenerating his face, which had some blood from the blow, with the help of his art. Chizuru, unable to do anything, would simply give up. I'm sorry, Izuku, I couldn't do anything to defend myself. I'm useless. Chizuru thought before falling to her knees from exhaustion, her eyes slowly beginning to close. A few minutes had passed since Izuku had left. He was running in search of the alley. After a few seconds, he had finally found it. I could only bring some apples, Chizuru-chan. Izuku said, receiving no reply. Chizuru-chan, Izuku murmured before venturing into the alley and seeing the mess. Within the disaster there was mostly blood, which worried Izuku. Damn it, Izuku shouted before starting to search the entire place for Chizuru. After a few minutes he was about to give up, until he saw a sheet of paper. It appeared to be a letter. What is this? Izuku wondered before opening the letter. If you want the brat, you'll have to go to #########. If you come with someone else, I'll kill her. Finally, if you don't come within a week, I'll kill her too. At the strongest member of Hymen Destroyer. He repeated what was written in the letter. Those damn Hymen Destroyers again. Izuku shouted into the air, filled with hatred and annoyance towards them. Izuku would suddenly calm down and sigh. If they want to be destroyed so badly, then, they will be destroyed. Elsewhere. I see you're back, buddy. Did you do what I asked? The boss of the place asked. Yes, boss, I brought one of the boys just like you asked. Unfortunately, I couldn't bring the brat, but he'll come to us anyway. Sota said with a smile. That's very well done, buddy. Let's get everything ready for his arrival. The boss said with a smile. With Izuku. 1 week, huh, I'll make sure to get stronger, Izuku said to the air, completely determined. 6 days had already passed since then. The green-haired boy was training in the forest where he used to live. I've grown stronger, but I don't know if it will be enough to save you, Chizuru-chan. Even so, I'll take the risk. The green-haired boy said, looking up at the sky. I managed to access the art for a few minutes, but then I collapsed from exhaustion. That's bad. Oh well, the deadline is almost here. Izuku said before getting up from the rock. Hymen Destroyer, today I will finish you off. Izuku said with a hateful look. Elsewhere, Ashley, Soda, how's everything going? The boss of the place would ask. Alright, boss. All the members of Hymen Destroyer are already at the base. We're just waiting for the brat, Ashley said in a relaxed and confident tone. I still don't understand, boss. Why gather the entire Hymen Destroyer to take down a mere brat? Soda asked, not feeling so confident. It's simple, Soda. We can't let our guard down. After all, he's one of the world's most powerful art users. Even if he's only half of it, he could have grown stronger. Besides, I don't know his abilities. The boss said with a smile, to which Soda nodded. Soda is the only member of Hymen Destroyer with one of the 5 arts, so he's probably enough. Ashley would think, how's the extraction of the brat's art going? The boss would ask curiously. The process is 80% complete, boss. Ashley would reply with a smile. With Izuku, he was getting closer and closer to reaching that place. We're almost finished, I hope you're okay. Chizuru-chan, Izuku said to the air with worry in his eyes. Finally, he had arrived at the place. The moment he arrived, he would be met with a strong blow that would send him crashing into one of the walls. Is this really why you called everyone here? He's just a weakling. This will be easier than I thought, said the man who punched Izuku. Hey, that hurt, Izuku said as he slowly stood up with some blood on his forehead. Wow, for someone so small you have stamina. You were trained, weren't you? The man asked, getting into a fighting stance. What's it to you? Izuku said before launching himself forward at great speed, leaving a yellowish trail in his wake, and then delivering a powerful blow to the subject's head, shattering it instantly. A man would run towards Izuku, but Izuku would simply dodge him and knock him unconscious with a kick to the head. I need to finish quickly. I already wasted a minute on something unnecessary. Izuku thought before entering the base. As he entered the base, he was destroying everyone in his path, without stopping for a second. He would leave each of them badly injured with a single blow, something he didn't care about at all. After running for almost a minute, he finally reached the second to last floor. There was only one room on this floor. So you've finally arrived, huh? Said a person sitting in a chair with their back to Izuku. Yes, I've come to finish you off. Izuku said, getting into a fighting stance. Come on, you're very hostile, the person said before turning the chair around. Who are you? Izuku asked with mild curiosity. My name is Soda and I am the strongest in Hymen Destroyer. Soda said as he assumed a fighting stance. If you happen to defeat me, you'll have to face my boss, who, by the way, is stronger than me, Soda said with a smile. Defeat them? No, I won't defeat them. I'll annihilate them, Izuku said with a hateful glare. Try it, I'll prove you never can. Soda said before being met with a powerful blow from a hate-filled Izuku. Izuku would begin to repeatedly hit Soda in various parts of his body. What the hell? It's impossible that he's human, it hurts. Soda thought, unable to do anything behind the green-haired boy who was giving him a beating. Die, 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 die. Izuku would repeat as he hit Soda. It wasn't long before a sadistic smile formed on Izuku's face. Is he really a brat? I have no other option. Soda thought before backing away. Wow, to be honest, you've hurt me more than that brat. You know, during our fight, she refused to save her own skin to save yours. Isn't that pathetic? She's a simple id. Soda couldn't finish speaking because a hard blow to the face interrupted him. Soda would fall flat against the wall due to the great force of the blow. The next time you speak about her like that, it will be the last time you breathe in this world. Izuku said with a sadistic look. Ha ha ha, a brat like you. Who do you think you are? Soda laughed as he composed himself and approached Izuku. I'll finish this quickly, Soda said before delivering a powerful punch to Izuku's stomach that sent him flying out of the room. Izuku would fall to the ground due to the blow. The brat got pretty hurt in our fight. Can you believe she even lost consciousness? Soda said, trying to provoke Izuku, which worked too well, in fact. Did you hurt her? Did you really dare to do that? Izuku slowly stood up and spat out a little blood. Yes, I did it. Any problem? Sota asked, his words dripping with mockery. At great speed, Izuku appeared in front of Sota. Die. That's what Izuku said when he appeared in front of Sota. Astral devastation. Solar punch. Suddenly, Izuku's right arm began to heat up to the point that it turned yellow. As I understand it, the astral devastation has a connection to the sun and the moon. And that makes me wonder, why is it yellow? It should be white, unless it's still very weak. Sota would think arrogantly. Izuku's arms turned completely white. The approximate temperature was 5,772 degrees Celsius. Oh no, I can't move. Why can't I move? Ah, I understand now. I'm scared. I think this is the end for me. With that arm, Izuku could pierce Sota's chest with supreme ease, killing him instantly. There's one floor missing, Izuku said before pulling his arm from Sota's chest and letting his body fall to the ground. His arm was quite red. Izuku would go up the stairs that led to the top floor. There was only one room there as well. I have to hurry, I only have 30 seconds left, Izuku said before running towards the room. The moment he entered, he had to dodge a strong blow that was coming in his direction. You're fast, huh, said the boss of the place before jumping back. Who are you? Izuku asked, getting into a fighting stance. I'm the boss of this place, my name is Ro, said the man now known as Ro, getting into a fighting stance. Without saying anything else, Izuku would launch himself towards him and begin trying to hit him. Don't be so eager, Ro said before kicking Izuku so hard he'd send him flying. Damn, only 20 seconds left. This is bad, if time runs out. Izuku shook his head to the right in a gesture of denial. Get ready, Ro. This is the end for you, Izuku said, getting into a fighting stance. Without letting him answer, Izuku would appear in front of him, giving him a strong blow that wouldn't move him even an inch. Huh, he was surprised by a strong blow from Ro, which sent him crashing into a wall. Why the rush? Ro asked, appearing in front of Izuku. Ro would give Izuku several blows that would weaken him considerably. Haven't you mastered astral devastation yet? Ro said with a hint of mockery, causing Izuku's eyes to widen. Damn it, Izuku would shout and in a desperate attempt would launch himself at him. You're already very, very weak, he said while listlessly dodging Izuku's blows. 3, 2, 1. At that moment Izuku would fall to his knees completely exhausted and unable to move a muscle. I knew it, the boss said before pulling a remote control from his pocket. What is that? Izuku would ask with great difficulty. It's the machine I use to extract the arts, it's almost new. Well, almost, since it's already been used by someone, Ro would say with a mocking smile. Izuku wouldn't say anything, he just had a gloomy look. As you're probably already guessing, that someone is none other than Chizuru Ichino's, or should I say, Chizuru Minoko, Ro would say mockingly. I see, Izuku whispered, his gaze darkening. It wasn't long before whisker-like markings appeared on his cheeks, his hair began to change to a slightly blue-green, claws also emerged, and a light blue cloak enveloped his entire body. That's not astral devastation, Ro said, stepping back as he saw Izuku get up. As it stood up, what appeared to be a light blue tail appeared on its rear end. This is the end for you, a very serious voice murmured, it belonged to Izuku. When he looked up, his eyes were completely blue. Izuku would lunge at Ro, and once he was in front of him he would scratch him on the chest. I see, you've gotten stronger, huh? Saying that, Ro would smile. Don't think that will help you beat me, Ro said before launching herself at Izuku. Izuku would anticipate their movements and dodge them with ease. Take this, Izuku said before delivering a powerful punch to Ro's chest that would send him crashing into a wall. If I keep going like this, I might lose, Ro thought until an idea came to her. Do you know who gave the order to kill Toki Minoko? Ro asked. It wasn't long before a terrifying smile appeared on her face when she saw Izuku's reaction. So Hymen Destroyer has some kind of connection to those who did that. Izuku thought before giving Ro a serious look. If your plan was to lose, you should have told me from the start. After all, I'm not even fighting seriously yet, Izuku would say, to which Ro would be surprised. I don't believe you, Aro said, not believing a word the green-haired boy was saying. Now that I think about it, I can still use art. Maybe my strength regenerated or something like that. The green-haired boy thought before his arms, along with his tail, began to glow in a yellowish tone that then turned completely white. I'll finish this quickly, Izuku said as he got into a fighting stance. I've never seen anything like this in such a young child. This is bad. Besides, how did he get stronger so suddenly? Aro thought, remaining on guard. Slowly, Izuku would walk in his direction. Let's finish this. Astral devastation. Fury of Solar Fox. Izuku's tail would move at high speed in the direction of Aro. The tail was moving at a speed that Aro could barely see, but it was too late. That tail had completely passed through him. Aro would fall to his knees on the ground. It's over, Aro. This is the end of Hymen Destroyer, Izuku said, staring intently into his eyes. The end. You're wrong. This is just the beginning. And those were Ro's last words before falling to the ground, dead. Izuku would deactivate the astral devastation to avoid any kind of accident. Izuku would approach the controller Aro was holding and take it. Then he would press the only button on the controller. What appeared to be a basement would appear in the room. Izuku would go downstairs. Upon reaching the basement, Izuku saw a machine. Chizuru was inside it. That machine had a percentage. This was 95%. Izuku would use his tail and hit the machine, causing it to deactivate and the percentage to return to 0%. He would take Chizuru, who was unconscious, and disconnect some wires she had. Let's get out of here, Chizuru-cha. She couldn't finish speaking as she collapsed to her knees. Her transformation deactivated, and she fell unconscious. Elsewhere, a person was leaving the Hymen Destroyer base. This was Ashley. Don't worry, boss. I won't let Hymen Destroyer fall. Ashley thought as she escaped from the base. Izuku was unconscious. Several minutes had passed since then. Chizuru was slowly getting up, feeling a little dizzy. What happened? He wondered, very confused. She would turn towards the green-haired boy, before becoming filled with worry. Izuku, exclaimed the brown-haired girl with great concern in her eyes as she approached the green-haired boy. Wake up, the brown-haired girl whispered as she shook the green-haired boy in a desperate attempt to wake him up. After a few seconds of trying to wake him up, the brown-haired girl gave up and rested her head on the green-haired boy's chest. It didn't even take 5 seconds for the brown-haired girl to notice the blue tail that had formed behind the green-haired boy. What is this? I whispered before giving it a light squeeze, causing a small but loud scream to sound. Ah, the one who had shouted was the green-haired boy who became excited upon feeling the touch of the brown-haired girl on his tail. Izuku-chan, she said as she stood up with some tears in her eyes. Chizuru-chan, exclaimed the green-haired boy with a small smile, giving the brown-haired girl a hug. I'm glad you're okay, the brunette said, returning the hug. I'm glad you're okay too, the green-haired boy said as he continued to hug her. I love you, Izuku-chan, the brunette whispered. I love you too, Chizuru-chan, the green-haired boy whispered. Elsewhere, a subject was running towards a specific direction. This direction was a house located on the outskirts of the city. Don't worry, boss. Hymen Destroyer will recover from this, the man thought, recalling what had happened a few hours earlier. Flashback. A few hours ago. By the way, Aro would catch the attention of Soda and Ashley. What's up, boss? Ashley and Soda would ask. If anything goes wrong, I want you to go to this address. Aro would say, causing them both to hesitate. Do you think we're going to lose? Soda would ask. I already told you not to let your guard down. Anyway, that's where my son is headed. If anything happens to me, I want Ashley to be in charge of escaping so I can train him and make sure Hymen Destroyer doesn't fall. Aro said, making Ashley nod. Why Ashley and not me? Soda would ask with a slight annoyance. Don't worry, Soda, you and I will defend Hymen Destroyer to the very end. Aro said, making Soda nod. End of flashback. The subject, who was Ashley, was already at the address. Ashley would force the door because it was locked. Once inside, Ashley saw a woman cooking. It seemed she was only preparing 2 dishes. Ashley would approach stealthily before giving her a light blow to the neck and knocking her unconscious. Once he had hidden the lady, he would go upstairs and enter a room that had its door ajar. Upon entering the room, he saw a small child of approximately 8 years old sitting at a desk with his back to the door. Ashley would stealthily approach him and knock him unconscious with a light blow to the neck. A few hours had already passed. Ashley was in a different house than before, along with the little boy she had left unconscious. It wasn't long before the little boy got up. "What happened?" the little boy whispered before seeing the man in front of him. "Who are you?" the little boy would ask as he backed away. "Don't worry, I won't hurt you. I just want to help you," Ashley said, making the little boy raise an eyebrow. "What is he talking about?" the little boy would ask. "Your father." He couldn't finish because he was interrupted. "Don't talk to me about him. He abandoned me and my mom," the little boy shouted angrily. "He didn't do it because he wanted to," Ashley said. The little boy decided not to interrupt so that the other could continue. "You see, your father died because of someone. He wanted to protect you, and that's why he abandoned you and your mother," Ashley said, lying slightly, causing the little boy's eyes to widen. "Who is that someone?" the little boy asked, his eyes darkening. "A green-haired boy named Izuku," Ashley said, causing the little boy to nod. "What if we finish him off? That way we'll honor your father," Ashley said, making the little boy nod. "Where's Mom?" the little boy asked. She's in a safe place, don't worry," Ashley said, to which the little boy nodded. Back with Izuku. Izuku, along with Chizuru, were leaving the Hymen destroyer base. "You have a lot to tell me," the brunette said, to which the green-haired boy nodded. "You're right," he said as they walked in the direction of the cabin. A few hours had passed, the two had already arrived at the cabin and were now in a room. Izuku was already prepared to tell Chizuru everything. After all, he didn't want to hide anything from her anymore. "Where do I begin?" the green-haired boy wondered before starting to tell her. A few hours later, the green-haired boy had already told him everything. From the moment he was abandoned until now. She also told him that she was adopted, that her biological father had died, etc., etc. Needless to say, Chizuru was in shock as she processed everything. After all, she was still too young to grasp something like that so easily. "Are you okay, Kai?" Izuku couldn't finish speaking because Chizuru gave him a hug. "On one hand, I was loved by my parents even though I was quirkless. I was only bullied by some boys or girls, but they always defended me. But, you didn't have anyone to defend you, besides my biological father, but I don't think he counts. You were kidnapped and experimented on. It wasn't until later that they let you go because they considered you a defect. I admire you, Izuku. You were strong until the very end," the brown-haired girl said while crying on the green-haired boy's shoulder. The two boys were now embracing, unsure of what would become of them now that they were alone. But one thing they did know was that they would be together until the end. "How about we train?" Izuku said suddenly, causing Chizuru to open her eyes. "What are you talking about?" Chizuru asked. "Do you remember what I told you about the art we now possess?" Izuku said, causing Chizuru to understand. "I understand. That's fine. We need to prepare since we don't know if anyone else will want to acquire the arts," Chizuru said with a smile. "I think tomorrow is a good day to start," Izuku said, causing Chizuru to nod with a smile. "Elsewhere, you still haven't told me your name," Ashley said, causing the little boy to nod. "My name is Kito," said the one now known as Kito. "Okay, Kito, ready to start training?" Ashley would ask. "Yes," Kito replied. Flashback. "But are you sure, boss? Is he strong?" Ashley asked, causing Kito to nod. "He's not that strong right now, but I'm sure he has the potential. After all, his quirk is quite powerful. If he were to combine it with some kind of art, I can't even imagine what he could do," Aro said with a proud smile. End of flashback. The next day, Izuku and Chizuru were outside the cabin, ready to begin their training. "Ready?" Izuku asked. "Ready," he said in response before launching an attack, followed by Izuku. Location: Musudafu. Date: January 1, 2020. It was night, around 11:30. A police car with its sirens on was chasing another car, which was going at top speed. The passenger in the front seat of the other car pulled out a gun and started shooting at the police car through the window. "Step on it," the passenger yelled as he fired at the police car. In response, the driver simply accelerated. Near the location, in a building, a masked man was watching the area until he heard the sirens. Without thinking, he would jump towards the car, landing on its roof. "Well, it doesn't look like he's having a lucky day," the masked man said in a somewhat mocking tone. "Shut up." The passenger would start shooting towards the ceiling. The masked man would easily dodge the bullets without much effort. "I'm faster than a bullet, I think you should know that by now," he said before punching the ceiling hard and crashing through it. With ease, he would pull the passenger out of the gap and throw him onto the road. Then, he would repeat the action with the driver. Once both were on the road, the masked man would jump in front of the car and stop it with one hand. "I think that's enough," he said to himself, watching as the police approached them, who were disoriented. The masked man would leap towards the roof of a building. Once on the roof, the masked man was about to remove his mask, but he stopped just as he was about to do so. And he said, "Eraserhead, you should know by now that spying isn't a good idea." He glanced in the direction of a figure lurking in the shadows. From them emerged a figure with bandages around his neck and wearing glasses. Masked Kitsune, to some, the Kitsune hero, to others, the masked villain. He muttered as he got into a fighting stance, looking at the mask the masked man possessed. "Do you think this is a fantastic day to try and catch me?" I asked mockingly. "You're right." His eyes would turn red, activating his quirk. "You know that never works, Eraser," I said while striking a distracted pose. The bandages that Eraser had on his neck were about to attack the masked man, who without much effort grabbed them and pulled them towards him. Once he was in front of him, Eraser would deliver a kick that would sweep the masked man away. "I'll soon find out who you are," Eraser said before leaping into another building. "Try as much as you want." I got up and started jumping from roof to roof. It wasn't long before I finally reached a forest and a cabin. 9 years flew by. I took off my mask, revealing Izuku. Some things have happened since then. Flashback. 2 years ago, I was training with Chizuru. "Take this," Chizuru said, throwing a punch that almost hit me, "but I think we should leave it here for today," I said, to which Chizuru nodded and headed towards the cabin. I sat down on the grass, feeling a sense of peace. A peace that would be shattered the moment I saw a piece of paper under a rock. With some curiosity, I approached the paper and began to examine it. "It can't be," I murmured softly as I read the paper. "What can't be?" A voice from behind me was heard. "Ah, nothing," I said, a little nervously, as I turned around. "Okay," he said, not understanding Izuku's reaction. "How about you come back? I have something I need to take care of," he said, and Chizuru nodded. Once Chizuru left, I started running to get out of the forest. I had something to check. If what the letter says is true, then we're in danger, I said as I read the letter. "The resurgence is closer than you think. Hymen Destroyer is closer than you think, and your end is also closer than you think. Keep the letter." After a few minutes I had arrived at my destination. It was the old Hymen Destroyer base. The moment I arrived, a strong blow hit me in the face. "What the hell?" Instinctively I jumped back as a dark attack almost hit me. "We meet again," a voice sounded. It was the one who had hit me. Behind me I saw a boy 2 years older than me stand next to the other one. "Hymen Destroyer." I got up from the ground and got into a fighting stance. "You were the one who killed him." The boy, 2 years older than me, would lunge at me with his fist outstretched. I couldn't dodge the blow and I fell to the ground. He was going very fast. I could see his fist leaving a trail of something dark. "What do you want?" I asked as I slowly stood up. "It's simple, we want revenge," the older boy than me said. "This is just a warning. Real chaos is closer than you think," the person next to the boy my age said. "In 2 years and a few months, we'll be unstoppable." And also, I could see the other person cover the mouth of the boy my age. My eyes began to feel heavy. I could see dark smoke enter my nose, and then I fell again, this time unconscious. End of flashback. Since then I've trained twice as hard. I've gotten stronger since that day. It's been 2 years now, just a few months until they attack. Chizuru and I decided to become heroes because she wanted to use her strength to her advantage. I was going to refuse, but then I thought about what I've been doing since reading that letter. I decided to do it to keep a low profile, though in the end she doesn't know what I do at night, and I don't plan on telling her. The next day, I was waking up thanks to the aroma that was coming into the room. I could see with my eyes half open as Chizuru entered with a tray of food. I sat on the bed, feeling a little drowsy. I brought you breakfast. I put the plate on my lap and smiled at him. Thank you. I smiled too. While I was eating, I could see Chizuru sitting on the edge of the bed. Are you ready, Izuku? Chizuru asked me with a small smile. Why? I asked, and she replied, did you forget? The entrance exam for the Hero Academy is in a week. Chizuru said, it was something I had forgotten. After all, time had flown by. I smiled, trying to hide the fact that I didn't remember, and said, of course I remember. From the expression on his face, I could see that he didn't believe me. I don't believe you, she said, pouting. Well, I'd forgotten, I said, noticing a hint of sadness in her face. It seems you don't care, she said in a somewhat sad tone. Of course I care, it's just that time has passed so quickly. I feel like just yesterday we were 6-year-old kids, I said with a touch of melancholy. Okay, I believe you. She smiled at me and I continued eating. I don't know what fate has in store for us now. But I'll make sure to protect you, Chizuru-chan. I won't let anyone hurt you, I thought with a smile. After eating, I got out of bed to do my daily routine. Are you going to exercise? Can I join you? Chizuru asked, with a smile. All right. Once I answered, Chizuru smiled at me and we started walking out of the cabin. Let's begin, I said. Immediately, Chizuru lunged at me with her fist outstretched. A few minutes had passed, we finally finished our friendly match and were now resting. I can't wait for the entrance exam, Chizuru said, looking up at the sky with a smile. Oh really? Yes, that would be great. By the way, have you heard about the Kitsune hero? Chizuru asked hesitantly, wanting to know the green-haired boy's reaction. She already knew about it, since when the green-haired boy saved her, she had caught a glimpse of a tail that disappeared almost instantly. Yes, I must have heard something. Why do you ask? Izuku asked, sounding a little nervous. Because I admire him. There are people who don't, and I don't blame them. After all, nobody's perfect. Chizuru said, smiling as she looked up at the sky. Hee, you're right, Izuku said, with a smile, also looking up at the sky. Yes. Did you ask me who it could be? 5 days later, it was night, there were only 2 days left until the entrance exam began. I was out shopping, alone. I usually shop alone, so I don't expose Chizuru to danger. A few minutes had passed, and I was about to leave the store. From afar I could see 5 girls. I could say they were the same if it weren't for the fact that each one was wearing a different accessory. They appear to be sisters. I whispered, looking at them. With nothing else to do there, I prepared to leave the store. I saw a suspicious person enter after I left. It seems today is not that guy's lucky day, I said, watching as he pointed the gun at the person working at the store's checkout. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see how the girls who looked just like them were trembling with fear. There was one in particular who was willing to protect those who appeared to be her sisters. She had butterfly accessories. I think it's time to intervene, I said in a whisper, as I put a hand in my pocket, looking for my mask. I couldn't find it. This is bad. Without her I can't do anything, I whispered. Inside the place. Give me the money, old man. A person armed with a pistol was pointing it at the elderly man who was working the register. Oh okay, the old man said as he opened the box. He quietly pressed a button near the box. The subject would become enraged upon seeing the movement the old man made and, with some fury, would point towards the old man's head. You will pay with your life, old man, said the man who was about to shoot, but did anyone think it was going to be nothing? A guy wearing a mask would come in. You could still see the purchase receipt on it, but that didn't matter. I was lucky that they were selling masks right next door. The masked man thought with a smile. Looks like someone wants to play the hero, the man said in a confident pose. The masked man would signal for the sisters to leave through the back door, along with the old man. Do you think I'm an idiot? He said, just as he fired backwards, grazing the old man's leg. Wow, for a villain you're very clever, he said mockingly. The subject, enraged by the masked man's comment, would point towards him. Stop, said one of the sisters, pushing the man who had just fired the shot. Thank you, the masked man said before appearing in front of the villain, grabbing him by the head and slamming him against a wall. What's your name? The masked man asked. Nino Nakano said with a slight blush upon seeing how aggressive he had been with the villain. What's your hero name? Nino asked with a smile. What should I say? Maybe the nickname I'm most known by is the best option, I thought with a smile. The Kitsune hero. Nines. I introduced myself with a smile. Nines. Really? Nino asked excitedly. They shouldn't have been distracted. The man would scream and lunge at the masked man. The masked man would easily deliver a blow to his chest that would knock him to the ground. Damn it, the man said, annoyed. But then an idea occurred to him, and he smiled. Take this. The moment the masked man was distracted, the subject pulled out a gun he had tucked into his leg and fired twice in the direction of the sisters. Girls, Nino shouted in fear. The masked man would quickly run in that direction, and, having no time, would use his body as a shield. The masked man would fall to his knees. Are you okay? The 5 girls asked. Yes. It wasn't long before the masked man got up, removed the bullets from his body with his fingers, and began to heal. Nines would appear in front of the villain and, with a light tap on the head, knock him unconscious. Okay, I'm leaving now, said Nines, who didn't let the sisters say goodbye because the police sirens were getting closer and closer. Nearby. That was great, but I got too confident, Nines thought before taking off her mask and throwing it on the ground. 2 days later, finally, the day had arrived when Izuku and Chizuru would take their entrance exam. They were both already taking their written exam. Luckily, our training wasn't just physical. They both thought. After a few minutes, the practical exam was about to begin. To all the hopefuls, welcome to my show today. Everybody say hey, I would exclaim with excitement, present on mic. Nobody would say anything and present mic would be slightly disappointed. Tough audience. I'll quickly present the summary of the practical exam. Are you ready? The hero would ask excitedly. Again there would be silence, a truly uncomfortable silence. Poor thing, Izuku thought, seeing what was happening. He and Chizuru were thinking the same thing, and when they realized that, they started planning something. As stated in the application requirements, they will have to participate in a simulated urban combat battle. As soon as the presentation is over, you will need to go to your assigned combat center, okay? There are 3 types of fake villains. You will get points for defeating them depending on their difficulty. Their goal, my dear listeners, is to use their gift to score points by immobilizing villains. Of course, attacking other applicants, or any other unheroic action, is strictly forbidden. Present Mike would explain before being interrupted by a bespectacled, hairy man. Could I ask you something? The blue-haired boy asked. Of course, I would answer with a smile. There are 4 villains in this photocopy. If this is a printing error, UA, the most prestigious academy in all of Japan, should be ashamed of this silly mistake. The blue-haired boy with glasses said while making robotic movements. We, the aspiring heroes here, have come to be exemplary heroes. And you too. Pointing in a specific direction, he saw Izuku and Chizuru talking. The blue-haired man would be ignored, since they didn't even know he was referring to them. The one with green hair and the one with brown hair. He would say somewhat angrily. Us, they both asked, pointing at each other. They've been talking the whole time, it's annoying, said the blue-haired boy, annoyed. You can just ignore him or change seats. Besides, you didn't even wait for Present Mike to finish his explanation. I think the annoying one here is someone else, the green-haired boy said with a mocking smile. In response, the blue-haired boy simply sat down in his seat. They eat here, Chizuru said with a hint of mockery, trying to hold back her laughter. Okay, participant 7111, thanks for the message. The 4th villain is worth 0 points. It's an obstacle, so to speak. There's one in each combat center. The obstacle will attack you if you get too close together on a narrow side. It's not impossible to defeat, but there's no need to. I recommend avoiding it. Present Mike would explain. Upon hearing that, the blue-haired man would get up from his seat. Thank you so much. While giving a perfect bow, he was still angry about what the green-haired boy had said to him. I see, they're like obstacles in a video game. That would explain a background character. This all seems like a game. Another background character might say. That's all from me. To conclude, I'll give you all a gift, our school's motto. The legendary Napoleon Bonaparte once said, a true hero is one who overcomes life's misfortunes. Go further. Plus ultra, shouted the green-haired boy and the brunette in unison. Present Mike could see how much he liked the eye. He smiled at the gesture. After that, each one went to their assigned area. Chizuru would be in a different area, with an ash-haired man. Izuku, for his part, was already prepared from the beginning, ready to give it his all. This will be interesting. I can't use my kitsune form because everyone would realize who I am. So I'm left with astral devastation, which, luckily, I can use at 50% of its power. Although it drains me quite a bit, so I'll use less. The green-haired man thought. As I continued thinking, I felt something bump my shoulder, and when I looked out of the corner of my eye I could see the blue-haired boy. I will crush you in this test, he said arrogantly. Whatever you say, kid, he said, not paying much attention. How do I? He was interrupted because Izuku had started running as the doors had opened. What are you waiting for? There's no timer when you're a hero. With that, the others started running, because the green-haired boy was taking all the stolen goods. Izuku had already been destroying robots for 5 minutes, he already had 50 points. Chizuru had 40 points in those 5 minutes. I'm only using art. If I used my powers, the others would realize who I am, and that's something I don't want. The green-haired man thought as he continued destroying robots. To tell you the truth, I don't know what I am or what they turned me into. I found out after saving Chizuru, and since then I've been training in secret. I suppose that's when they experimented on me. The green-haired man thought as he continued destroying robots. Elsewhere, doesn't this year look promising? The person who appeared to be the director would ask. I find that fast, blue-haired kid interesting. I point to a cement block head. I like the ash-haired guy who throws explosions, even though he's a bit temperamental, All Might said. That guy resting on top of that building looks so relaxed it turns me on. A heroine in a seductive outfit blurted it out without realizing it. Instantly, everyone stared at her strangely. Come on, don't look at me like that. The heroine would say, well, I think you're right. A blonde heroine would say, how about we leave this conversation for another time and place? We'll end up traumatizing those who get in through recommendations, said the director, a bead of sweat forming on his brow as he observed the uncomfortable expression of a half-red, half-white, and half-black-haired girl. Director Nezu, could you see the boy resting on the roof of that building? The raven-haired girl pointed, receiving a nod from Nezu. Go director, even the recommended one thinks the same as us, the heroine would say, dressed seductively in a carefree pose. I feel like I've seen this before. The raven-haired woman thought, ignoring the heroine's comment, until a memory came to her. Flashback. A few years ago. Why isn't anyone helping me? Whispered a green-haired boy as tears fell from his eyes. Hey, what are you doing here? And why are you crying? A voice, which sounded worried but also sweet and gentle, was heard in front of the green-haired boy. He looked up and noticed that it was a girl his age. She had black hair and black eyes. It's none of your business, the little boy would reply, since he didn't see how a girl his age could possibly help him. Besides, he didn't want her to find out he was quirkless. The little girl, somewhat indignant, was about to say something, but noticing the look the little boy had, she knew that instead of getting angry with him, she had to help him. That's right, after all, we're strangers. So from now on, we're friends. What do you think? Isn't that great? The raven-haired girl asked excitedly. She was about to continue speaking, but was interrupted by a sound coming from the green-haired boy's stomach. You're hungry, aren't you? The little girl asked. Izuku responded with a slight, shy nod. Without responding, Izuku watched as the little girl ran away from the place. I wasn't expecting anything anyway, said the green-haired boy before continuing to lie back on the ground. After a few minutes, he was about to close his eyes, until he saw a sweet face, which had a beautiful smile, looking directly into his eyes. "Here, eat," said the raven-haired woman with a smile, handing the little boy a bag. "What, you're hungry, aren't you? Besides, I like to help," the girl said with a smile. The little boy, somewhat hesitantly, would take the bag and open it. The little girl was about to say something, but she couldn't because her bodyguards were quickly approaching them. "I thought it would take them longer to realize I'd escaped," the girl thought mischievously. "Well, it seems they found me. See you later," he said goodbye somewhat sadly before walking towards his bodyguards. End of flashback. Since then I wanted to see him again, because I had talked to my parents about it. Flashback. A few years ago. "Mom, I made a friend today," the raven-haired girl said with a smile as she lay in her bed, looking at her mother. "That's great. And what's it like?" asked the raven-haired girl's mother with a smile. "He's a green-haired boy, but now that I think about it." The little girl would put a hand to her chin and after a few seconds speak. "Mom, if in a hypothetical case he were an abandoned child, could we adopt him?" the little girl asked seriously. She hadn't thought about it until now, but when she saw that child, he didn't seem like someone with parents. "Well, we'd have to talk to Dad about it. How about we talk about it tomorrow?" the woman said with a smile. "Okay, Mom," the little girl would say before starting to close her eyes. End of flashback. I finally spoke to them the next day and they gave me permission. But I never found you. 2 years passed and I gave up. But now that you're here, I'm only interested in knowing what happened and maybe. The raven-haired girl thought with determination until someone pulled her from her thoughts. "Is everything all right, Yaoyorozu?" the half and half would ask. "Yes, everything's fine, Todoroki," the raven-haired girl would say. "And who do you like, Aizawa?" the principal asked curiously. "I haven't decided yet," Aizawa said. "By the way, director, how many points does that boy have?" a man in red clothes asked, pointing at the green-haired boy. "Let's see, 180 points. And he was relaxed," Nezu said, surprised. "What?" they all shouted in surprise. "He even surpassed All Might's record of 126 points, Yaoyorozu said with a slight smile. Suddenly, the door was opened by 3 boys. "Sorry I'm late," a blonde muscle man would say, rubbing his head. "Let's see, everyone has amazing quirks," thought a blue-haired girl with a smile, looking at the screens until she saw one in particular. It was the green-haired boy's. "That boy, where have I seen him before?" the blue-haired girl wondered as she slowly approached. "Do you know him?" a raven-haired girl would ask, hiding her jealousy. "I remember now," the blue-haired girl would say excitedly. "Could you tell us where you know him from, Miss Fairy?" the director asked, only to be ignored by the blue-haired girl who was intently watching the screen. "That's the boy I gave advice to. He's gotten so strong, I have to ask him so many questions," the blue-haired girl thought excitedly. "Back with Izuku." "Okay, I think these points are enough," Izuku said as he sat on the floor waiting for the test to end, but a tremor would occur that would make everyone turn around. From it emerged a huge robot that would begin to destroy everything in its path. "It must be 0 points. But I don't see the need to fight it. It's best to leave it for later," he said as he started walking away from the robot with his hands at its neck. But help! A terrified female scream rang out. The green-haired boy turned in that direction and saw her about to be stepped on by the 0-pointer. From the waist of the green-haired man, instinctively, a sky-blue tail would begin to appear, which could not be seen because of the cloud of dust that was there thanks to the 0 points. Without thinking, the green-haired boy would jump towards the 0 points. What the green-haired boy didn't see was how 2 more attacks were heading towards the robot. "Kitsune burst," the green-haired boy whispered with his arm outstretched, launching a powerful attack that would pierce through the robot. That was easy, he thought until he saw those 2 attacks heading towards him. Don't they realize what they're doing? That attack could kill the person we're trying to save, the green-haired boy thought as he plummeted down, deflecting the attacks with some difficulty. "Interesting. Those girls are strong. First time for me," the green-haired boy thought as he fell into the rubble and lifted it to pull the girl out. After removing them, he could see a girl with ears with headphone jacks. "Are you all right?" the green-haired boy asked. "Yes, thank you for saving me. What's your name?" I would ask with a slight blush. "Izuku." He would introduce himself. "Thank goodness the dust cloud covered me, thanks to that nobody saw my tail." The green-haired boy must have thought. "Did you see that? It was incredible," the other participants would say. "Why don't you all just shut up? The girl could have died. And these are the future heroes of Japan." The green-haired boy said mockingly. "I'd definitely rather die than be saved by you," the green-haired boy said, walking towards the exit. Nobody said anything, because he was right. "Where are you going?" a crimson-haired girl would ask. "Where to? The test's over," the girl was about to ask, when Present Mike's voice came through the speakers. "In the teacher's area. Director, what's that boy's quirk?" A female voice could be heard. It was Midnight who asked with curiosity and a certain degree of excitement. "Let's see. Reviewing some papers, only to be surprised later. This kid, he's quirkless," Nezu would say in surprise. "Interesting. Could it be that? Okay, I've decided," Aizawa thought with a strange smile, looking at the screen. "Director, I call dibs on the green-haired one," Aizawa said, receiving a nod from the director. "May I ask why?" she asked curiously while sipping some tea. "I am convinced," I would reply. And so, with the test over, everyone would go home, eagerly awaiting the letter to find out if they had been accepted into the academy or not. A week had already passed since then. The green-haired boy and Chizuru were having lunch after a morning training session. "Hey, Izuku," he said, calling my attention. "And, the letter is supposed to arrive today, I'm so excited," she said, her voice filled with emotion. "Yes, me too," she said with a small smile, seeing Chizuru's excitement. Talk talk. The sound of the door would startle the green-haired boy, until he remembered that it must be the letter. "I'll open it," said the green-haired boy, getting up and opening the door. "Here you go," said the postman, handing him the letter. The green-haired boy would take it and the postman would leave. Once the green-haired boy closed the door, he returned to where Chizuru was. "So?" I asked with a smile. The green-haired boy, without answering, opened the letter and out of it came a disc which displayed a hologram. "Hello. What am I? A dog, a mouse, or a bear?" "Exactly. I'm Principal Nezu. Young Izuku, Miss Chizuru, I've come to tell you your results." On the written exam, they both got a perfect score, a 100. Although it may not seem like it, this is surprising, because even I would struggle to answer the last questions. And as if that weren't enough, they got an amazing score on their practical exam. Young Izuku scored 208 points defeating villains and 50 points on a secret test he earned by saving that girl with the headphone jacks. That's a total of 258 points. Finally, the young Chizuru scored 173 points. Needless to say, welcome. This is your Hero Academy. Your hero course is 1A. The hologram would turn off. Izuku was calm. Chizuru, on the other hand, was a little jealous after hearing what the principal said. "Who was that girl?" he asked with a chilling smile. "She's just a future heroine, she's nothing," he said, feeling somewhat intimidated. "I hope so. You'll tell me everything, too," he said, approaching the green-haired boy. All right. The next day, both boys were already leaving the cabin, both in their uniforms. "Do you have everything, Chizuru?" Izuku asked. "Yes," she replied with a smile. And so, they both continued walking in the direction of the academy. Upon arrival, they both went to their classroom. "The door is very big," Chizuru said, somewhat surprised. "It must be for those with mutation-type quirks." "Let's go in," the green-haired boy said, opening the door. After opening the door, the green-haired boy would see a small conversation. "Hey, you should put your feet down. It's disrespectful to the people who made this chair and to those who sat in it," the same blue-haired boy from Izuku's test would say to an ash-blonde boy. "Shut up, Four Eyes. What high school did you go to?" "Extra," the ash-haired boy yelled, glaring at the blue-haired boy. "My name is Iida Tenya, and I come from Sumei High School," he said proudly, making some robotic movements. "Sumei, huh, so you're a damn elite. All the more reason to crush you," he shouted, looking arrogantly at the blue-haired boy. Crush me, do you really want to be a hero? He would ask, feeling somewhat intimidated. The blue-haired boy watched as a green-haired boy walked over to a chair and sat down. In response, he approached him. It seems we're in the same class. The blue-haired boy said, looking at the green-haired boy. And what do you want? The green-haired boy would ask. I apologize, he said, adjusting his glasses. I won't give them to you, I'm not interested. What did you say? I was going to do something but was silenced by a voice. Stop. He made a stop gesture with his hand while looking at him threateningly. This was Izuku. The blue-haired man, instinctively, went to his chair, somewhat frustrated. A gray-haired man, seeing what was happening, would approach. Well, look who we have here. Bakugo Katsuki, do you need something? The green-haired boy asked, recalling a bit of the last time they saw each other. Where are those useless people like you? I ask with a hint of mockery. Useless. The only useless person I see here is you. Someone far below me, someone inferior to me. Get out of my sight. I would say egotistically. Damn you, Deku, you'll see. The ash-haired man was about to launch himself, but was interrupted by a bored voice. Stop it, you two, a bored voice would say. The entire class turned toward the sound of the voice, seeing what appeared to be a caterpillar. It had a dull voice and looked somewhat sleepy. A talking caterpillar, wondered one of the students with balls on his head until he looked closely and saw that there was something inside. He ate it, he said, sounding both scared and surprised. It's just my sleeping bag, he said, sounding bored as he climbed out, revealing a tall, thin man with pale skin, messy black hair, and half-open black eyes. He looked a bit worn, as if he'd just rolled out of bed. Go somewhere else if you want to play at being friends, he said, looking at some who were talking, with the exception of a few. Okay. It took them 8 seconds to stay calm. I'm your homeroom teacher, Aizawa Shota. Now, I know you just arrived, but put these on and come to the courtyard. Pressing a button from which uniforms emerged. Asterisk. All the students simply obeyed what was said, and went down to the courtyard in their uniforms, where their teacher was. All right, we'll do a quirk test, he said, much to everyone's surprise. But Professor, what about the opening ceremony? A chestnut would ask. We don't attach importance to those ridiculous events at this school, she said seriously, receiving a nod from the brunette. You, pointing at the green-haired boy. You got first place in the practical exam with a total of. Taking out a sheet, 258 points. He said, somewhat surprised, although it wasn't noticeable because of his monotonous way of speaking, which in turn surprised everyone. It's a monster, almost everyone thought except for a half-red, half-white boy, an ash-haired boy, a chestnut-haired girl, and a jet-black girl. The ash-haired man was starting to get angry. In high school, what was your best softball pitching result? I didn't go to middle school. What should I say? As he thought this, Aizawa looked towards a security camera that was nearby. Well, never mind. Come on, stand over there. Pointing to a white base. Once the green-haired boy stood there, Aizawa would throw him a ball. Just throw it. You can do whatever you want while you're in the circle, he said, receiving a nod from Izuku. Okay, here I go. I'll only use a portion of astral devastation. I don't want to draw attention. He sighed and then began to release an aura, half white, half almost orange. His eyes were also changing color, they were now red. Astral devastation 15%. Whisper before throwing the ball. Why are they looking at me like that? The green-haired boy wondered, seeing everyone lying on the ground. Didn't you feel it? Aizawa asked, watching with a bead of sweat as everyone lay on the ground. You caused an earthquake, Chizuru said, and the green-haired boy understood. It was really just a slight tremor. He said half and half. Ups. A beep would sound, and Aizawa would show his scoreboard. 50,000 kilometers, he said, showing the odometer. 50,000. They would all shout in surprise. Damn Deku, why didn't you tell me you had a quirk? He lunged towards Izuku to explode. Aizawa was going to stop him, but the green-haired boy got there first. It's not something I should say to a stupid ignoramus. appearing quickly in front of him and giving him a kick that left a yellow trail that the ash-haired man tried to cover up, but it was in vain because he would go flying. "Enough," said the teacher, his eyes glowing as he deactivated Bakugo's quirk. "Why couldn't I deactivate his quirk?" Aizawa wondered in surprise, looking at the green-haired boy. "It's the same as when he confronted me," remembering a certain masked man. In the director's office, the director, who was watching everything from the cameras, smiled. "It seems to be as you say, Eraser," the director thought, remembering. Flashback. On the day of the entrance exam, Aizawa requested a meeting with the principal. "What did you want to talk about, Aizawa?" the rodent asked. "I suspect that one of those who took the practical exam is the Kitsune hero, Nines," Aizawa said seriously. "And that someone is the green-haired boy. That's why I want to know more about him," Aizawa said, still maintaining his serious demeanor. "But how? On the day of the test, she didn't show any tail, and besides, she didn't have light blue hair. It's like he has two quirks. But I saw him sprout a tail when he saved that girl." "Okay, you can look into it. I suggest you do a test on the first day to see if there's a possibility." "Thank you, Director Bose. If I manage to get anything, I'll let you know." End of flashback. "What else are you hiding, young Midoriya?" the rodent whispered, looking up at the sky. "Back with the test. It looks fun," said a pink-haired girl. "Fun? Well, whoever comes in last will be rewarded with a lovely expulsion for having no potential," he said, giving a macabre smile. "What?" everyone shouted except for a few. "Don't you think you went too far?" Chizuru would ask. "Yes, you're right, but it doesn't matter. Even if it was only 15%. he said casually. And so the tests continued, in which the green-haired boy came in first in all of them, except for one in which he came in second because the one with the balls on his head knew how to use his quirk to come out first in that test. "Okay, these are the results," he said, showing a hologram where the aforementioned results could be seen. 1. Izuku. 2. Chizuru. 3. Bakugo Katsuki. 4. Todoroki Shoto. 11. Yaoyorozu Momo. 16. Kyoka Juro. 20. Minoru Mineta. His quirk might be good for restraining villains. I guess he got lucky. The professor thought. The expulsion thing was a joke. He said seriously. It was obvious, she can't expel anyone. Yaoyorozu said, much to Mineta's delight. You'd better get ready for next time, he said as he left, and the others followed him to continue the class. Classes went by normally. Once they ended, the green-haired boy was walking with Chizuru when a brunette girl, Koz, stopped him. Hey, you must be Deku, right? A brunette asked, stopping Izuku. No, my name is Izuku. Correction. Oh, it's just that since that boy called you that, I thought that was your name, she said, sounding somewhat embarrassed. Yeah, whatever, he said, walking past her and leaving together with Chizuru. Why did you answer her like that? Chizuru asked. Because I saw you were jealous. Jealous? I'm never jealous, she said, blushing. Whatever you say, jealous-chan, she said with a hint of mockery. Moo, he pouted, and so they both left, talking and joking with each other. A few days had passed since then. Izuku and Chizuru were now sitting side by side in the chairs of their classroom. Hey, Izuku, that girl's been looking at you, he said, pointing at a raven-haired girl. That girl, she couldn't finish because, I'm coming in like an idiot, he said, coming in like an idiot. Take 2xd, I'm coming in like a normal person, he said, entering in the complete opposite way. All Might, almost everyone shouted. Today we have hero class. All Might said, what are we going to do? One Might asked. Battle of Heroes. How? Began an excited ash-haired man. Bat, I finish a half and half. I'd say it's interesting, but I know that whoever I'm paired with will end up crushing them anyway. The green-haired boy thought. Isn't it a little early, Kiro? A little frog might ask. With this practice they'll gain experience. And now, pressing a button, hero costumes pop out of the walls. Each one would take their respective suit and head towards the dressing rooms. Guys, look what I found. Pointing to a hole in the wall. A legacy from our ancestors, we'll be able to see Urasuka's curves, Hagakuri's floating panties, and... He couldn't finish speaking because he was grabbed by the neck. Repeat what you said. Looking at him threateningly. I said we should bring a little cement to cover the hole, Mineta said, scared shitless. Juro, what was that noise? Yaoyorozu asked. It seems Mineta was trying to spy on us, and it seems Izuku stopped him. A few minutes had already passed. All Might waited for his students, until they all came out in their costumes, except for two. They looked great. The blonde guy shouted, Espere, falta Chizuru e Izuku. Diria Yaoyorozu. Here we are, they both said at the same time, emerging from the tunnel. And why didn't you bring suits? All Might asked, seeing that they were still wearing their uniforms. The suit is just a superficial thing. Besides, I'll end up crushing them anyway, so that's the least of my worries. I'd say arrogantly, okay, let's begin. These will be villains versus heroes battles, where the villains have a bomb holed up in their building. The hero's objective is to touch the bomb or defeat the villains. The villains' objective is to defend the tower and the bomb. It will be 2v2 matches and the teams will be random. Ignoring what the green-haired guy said, why are the battles random and not us able to choose them? Iida would ask, because you won't always have your partner by your side, you'll have to adapt to whoever you're paired with. All Might replied, thank you very much, Bose. Okay. This will be the first fight. A. Izuku y Yaoyorozu Momo. B. Bakugo Katsuki e Iida Tenya. Okay. Team A is the heroes and Team B is the villains. How boring. I would have preferred the whole class against me, at least that way I'd be entertained. Damn it. Drop your damn arrogance if you don't want. Iida couldn't continue because he was silenced by a threatening glare from the green-haired man. Shut up, you damned scum. If you say one more word, my eyes will be the last thing you see. Young Izuku, All Might would say to calm him down, seeing how he calmed down. Okay, everyone else, come to the surveillance room. Once everyone went to the surveillance room, Team A and Team B would go to their assigned areas. Yaoyorozu was about to speak but was interrupted. Could you tell me where I know you from? I feel like I've seen you before. The green-haired boy said, sounding somewhat serious. It happened when we were both 4 years old. Do you remember? I gave you some delicious croissants and pastries. Did you like them? Did you eat them all? I asked with a relaxed smile. Yes, I liked them, the green-haired boy replied, giving her a small smile. In the surveillance room, everyone was surprised by what they had done. But there were two who weren't so surprised, they were angry and jealous. Damn it. Even I can't get a small smile out of her. Chizuru said as comical tears streamed from her eyes. Yaoyorozu, I'd think a half and half, seeing the interaction between the two. Can he smile? Mineta asked, only to be silenced by a punch from Chizuru. Back with Izuku and Momo. I'm glad I got paired with you, the green-haired boy said to Yaoyorozu. Me too. Do you have any plans? The green-haired boy asked. Would it be a good idea to tell him? What if it fails and he's disappointed? Better not to tell him. I don't want that to be his first impression of me after our reunion. No, I don't have one, she said, though Izuku noticed she was lying and cornered her against a nearby wall. In the surveillance room. No, they're stealing it from me, she thought while crying comically and dying of jealousy. Why? Why does it hurt so much? We're just friends. Yaoyorozu is just my friend, right? The half and half would think. Back with Izuku and Momo. Momo, on the other hand, had a deep blush. Izuku, on the other hand, was serious. I know you have one. If you're having any insecurities, you could talk to me about it. I want to return the favor somehow. I know it's not much, but I'll think of something. No, don't worry. Back then I did it because I wanted to help you, she would say, blushing deeply. But, you're right, I have a plan, she said, this time looking at him with a smile and a challenging gaze. Explain it to me. The beautiful reunion had been interrupted by All Might's voice. Let's begin. Damn pufferfish, how dare you ruin our reunion? The green-haired boy thought. A sound would be heard, followed by the sound of bricks falling from the impact. From it emerged two shadows. Deku, he would shout, launching himself towards Izuku. Bakugo Katsuki, your stupid anger has let you down. But fine, I won't hold back. leaping back to dodge the blow. Don't run away, coward. He lunged again. Astral devastation 15%, sun devastation. Launching a powerful burst of flame which would intentionally only graze the ash-haired man who would kneel on the floor in pain. Ah, why won't it end? She said, writhing in pain. You're an idiot. You could have at least tried to make a plan. It's obvious you didn't even come up with one. Although, well, even with a plan, I would have finished them both off. He said arrogantly. Well, it's all up to you, Momo. He said, looking towards where she was fighting Iida. Take this, hitting him with a metal cane that knocked him to the ground. This is nothing, Yaoyorozu. Even so, I'll spare you. I don't want any trouble with your family. She said, quickly getting up and kicking Momo, sending her to her knees. What many people would give to have you like this, he said in a perverted way. Damn it, he tried to get up but couldn't. This is your end. Step on the top of his head. No, you're wrong. I smiled as I began to create something. What has he? He couldn't finish because he fell to the ground. In the end, it was your end, pathetic, Izuku said, watching the scene from afar, seeing Momo inject something into Iida's leg and him fall. The heroes win. All Might would shout into the microphone. In the observation room, no one said anything, because they had just seen two of the best in the class defeated, easily. Especially Bakugo, who was one of the best. He defeated him, with a single attack, opening parenthesis ... Fire. Todoroki thought as he remembered a bit of his past. Back with Izuku and Momo. Not bad, Yaoyorozu, the green-haired boy said with a small smile. You too, Izuku, he said, returning the smile. A few hours had passed, and the fighting continued during that time, which I won't include because 1. I'm too lazy. 2. Nobody cares. And if you do care, watch the anime. After a while, everyone was heading back home. And so the day ends. The next day, I was sitting in my seat. Next to me was Chizuru, who had her head resting on the table. I told you that you should go to bed early, I said reproachfully while letting out a sigh. You're right, I should have listened to you, he said, keeping his head on the table. Hey, are you two a couple? Asked a gossipy pink-haired girl. No, shake your head. No, I could hear a tone of disappointment. Student Izuku of Hero Class 1A, you are requested in the principal's office. The voice was heard over the loudspeakers. With some curiosity, I got up from my seat and headed towards the principal's office. It wasn't long before I finally arrived. Once I was in front of the door, I knocked 3 times. Come in, it was heard from behind the door. Upon entering, I could see some professional heroes along with the director. Among them, the most prominent were Eraserhead, Endeavor, All Might, Mount Lady, and Midnight. There were many serious faces, others worried. Sit down, the director said seriously. Without responding to what was said, I sat down and asked. Why did you summon me, director? Shut up, insolent one. A voice came from behind me. The culprit was the N2 hero, Endeavor. Wow, flames. Why don't you just shut up? I said mockingly. Young Izuku, we summoned you because we received this. Showing some images where Izuku could be seen holding a mask and had a blue tail at his waist. Oh, wow, who sent something like that? I asked curiously. The director is the one who asks the questions, you damn brat. Yelled Hero N2. Believe me, you're making me angry, flames. I said, looking at him as if he were just an insect. Endeavor, enraged, was about to unleash a burst of fire, until he was stopped by the director. It was an anonymous person. We have no idea who it could have been. I understand, director, but I don't think that's all there is to it, is it? I asked seriously. That's right, young Izuku. I have an offer for you that you can't refuse. Mainly because if you do, you'll face an ending I doubt you want. He said while taking a sip of tea. Interesting. Are you threatening me, director? You can take it however you want. I'll tell you my offer, but first I want to ask you a few questions. Go ahead, I answered confidently. What is your goal? I asked while still drinking my tea. Well, we're off to a strong start, director. Do I really need to know? Absolutely. That will allow me to formulate my offer more effectively. Okay, my goal is to take down a criminal organization called Hymen Destroyer. As I said that, I could see everyone become serious. Is that so? I understand they disappeared years ago. The police recently found their base, which was completely destroyed. He said with concern. That's right. I was the one who destroyed that organization, but it seems they've returned, this time with a goal, which I know what it could be. Could you tell me about it? The director asked. Okay, but first, would it be too much to ask if it could just be the two of us? I asked, then heard. That's a lot to ask, brat, Endeavor said. No, it isn't. I ask that you leave the young man and me alone. The director said. But, director, but nothing. After giving their verdict, everyone left except for the principal and Izuku. He heard you. Their goal is revenge, for they want to avenge him and Destroyer. 2 years ago, I was warned that they would become unstoppable. They may attack soon. I understand. Having some tea. Why do you save people? He asked calmly. Saving someone costs me nothing. If I have the opportunity to save someone, I will do it without hesitation. I understand. Doesn't that make you a hero? I don't know what I'll become, but ultimately it's something every hero has to do. They're heroes for a reason, aren't they? Good answer. Okay, here's my offer. Become an official hero. I'm not saying you have to give away your identity, it's clear you want to protect someone. Yes, I want to protect someone. She said, remembering a certain brunette. I could help you with that. If we give it our all and work together, him and Destroyer and any other villain will be no match for us. Also, I have to admit I did a little research on you. I know you're an orphan, I know you were abandoned, and that's why you're just called Izuku. The principal said, sipping his tea. What would happen if I refused? You would be sent to Tartarus where you would be judged. The director said sternly. I don't think that girl wants that, do she? To be honest, their offer wasn't bad, we both benefited. But I still wanted to turn it down. I didn't want to be tied to anything or anyone. But he didn't want to be sent to Tartarus either. After thinking about it for a few seconds, I made a decision. Okay, I accept your offer. As I said that, I saw the director smile. Boom. The sound of an explosion alerted the director and me, it was coming from the door. Looking in that direction, we could see that there was smoke. Oops, he. A girl with pink hair and yellow eyes stood up. Her irises were shaped like a cross. Who is she? I asked aloud, on my guard. Excuse me, I'm Hatsume Mei from the support course. She introduced herself with a smile. I'm sorry for spying on you and eavesdropping. He apologized while bowing. Where have all the foolish heroes who were here gone? I wondered to myself. What did you hear? I asked seriously. Everything. I was testing one of my babies. It allowed me to hear every whisper, no matter how quiet. At first, I didn't know where they were coming from, and I ended up following them, until I finally heard them behind the door. Babies. No, the way she says it must be some kind of made-up thing. I thought, so you know I am the Kitsune hero. Nines. He exclaimed excitedly, his eyes sparkling. Don't say it out loud. Sorry, I think I have an idea, the director said with a smile. What idea? I asked curiously. You're good at creating inventions, you just proved it, though they don't always turn out so well. I'm very intelligent, the most intelligent being. And young Izuku is a hero who doesn't want anyone to know his identity and has a goal that he'll probably need help to achieve. Director. I was surprised until I was interrupted. The birth of a group that seeks to end a criminal organization and at the same time save people was interrupted. Don't you think it's sudden? Besides, being a director must be a busy job, and not only that, I don't think Hatsume wants to do it, he surely has better things to do. After saying that, I could see the director seemed to think about something and then said. It doesn't matter, I can help them and be the director at the same time. He said in a carefree tone. And what about Hatsume? I asked. I wouldn't mind at all. I'd love to show off my baby making skills to one of the heroes I admire most. So, alright, I'm ready to make you as many babies as you want. Hatsume said with an excited smile. Okay, I'm counting on you, Hatsume. You'll give me lots of babies. Then it's decided. This day, January 19, 2020, the Kitsune group is born. Exclaimed the director, his words filled with emotion and a smile. Well, it's not such a bad idea. Anyway, I'll have to get used to this. Seeing how happy both the director and May looked. Elsewhere. Ashley, did you do what I asked? A 17-year-old boy asked. Yes, boss, but, could I ask why you're interested in a group that conducts experiments on humans? Are you planning to have that group experiment on you? Ashley asked doubtfully. Because of the brat who killed my father. One of my subordinates took some compromising photos of that guy. He's the Kitsune hero. A powerful hero. They've tried to capture him, but he always manages to escape. So I decided to get more allies since I didn't know their strength, until I found that group. Understand. Back with Izuku, he was already returning to his classroom. Once inside, he found Chizuru waiting for him. Why did the principal call you? You took so long, he said with concern. I just wanted to ask for your help, it was nothing. I said, calming her concern. Okay, giving me a hug. So, Kitsune group, huh? What will fate have in store for me now? Was he the Kitsune hero after all? Principal Aizawa was the first to ask. They appear to be edited photos, you can stop investigating. The director would give the order after seeing the other pro heroes. Okay, principal. Almost everyone would say that, except for Aizawa, who had different thoughts. Opening parenthesis ... Suspicious. I think I'll keep investigating. A week had already passed since then. Now we find ourselves at UA, where the green-haired boy and Chizuru could see how many reporters were outside the school. In an attempt to ignore them, they continued on their way. But their peace would be interrupted by one of them. Hey, is it true that All Might is at UA? What's his teaching style like? That and more questions reached the green-haired boy and Chizuru, who simply walked past them. After dodging some reporters, they finally arrived at their classroom and sat down to wait for their teacher. Does anyone know why there were so many reporters? The pink-haired girl asked. That's right, they almost didn't let me through, Mineta would say. That's what you get for being short, Kaminari would say mockingly. What did you call me? He asked, lunging towards his friend, until he was interrupted. Mineta, sit down, his eyes sparkled. All right, today you'll have to choose the class president, Aizawa would say. Upon hearing that, almost everyone started making a scene, each one wanted to be president. Silence. Ordinary Aizawa, I suggest it be done by vote. I would suggest a relaxed approach, as I thought they were going to choose him. The moment Iida said that, almost everyone nodded in agreement. Do whatever you want, just don't delay. A few votes later. 1. Izuku 8. 2. Yaoyorozu Momo 6. 3. Tenya Festival 4. 4. Katsuki Bakugo 0. Why the hell didn't they vote for me? I would do a much better job than those useless people. Shiny. He would scream, only to be ignored. So, Izuku will be president and Yaoyorozu will be vice president. Do you agree? I asked, and almost everyone nodded. Not that I care, after all, I know I'll do better than all of you. Izuku would say egocentrically. After that, the bell would ring, indicating it was time to go to lunch. Everyone was already in the cafeteria, each one eating. Izuku was sitting at a table with Chizuru and Momo. Guys, why do you want to be heroes? Iida asked, moving his arms like a robot. I want to be a hero for money so I can help my parents. Uraraka would say. And you? Iida asked Izuku, who was at the other table. What's it to you? Lower your tone if you don't want me to crush you right here and now, Iida said, getting up from the table. You can try, although you didn't do so well last time, he said with a mocking smile. Iida simply clicked his tongue and went to sit down. Izuku, are you going to tell me where you two know each other from? Chizuru asked, looking at Momo with a jealous tone. Well, it would be interrupted by the sound of an alarm. After the alarm sounded, there was a commotion among the students. Izuku would get up from his table to calm the commotion. Could you make me a megaphone? He asked Momo, who then made it for him. They're just reporters. They're pathetic, and these are the future heroes of Japan. I yelled through the megaphone before going to sit down. After that, everyone went to their class, where the teacher would tell them to prepare to go to USJ. After giving the order, everyone would go outside and get on the bus. On the bus, Izuku-chan, I say everything I think and I want to ask you something, Kiro. And, what's your quirk? In your fight against Bakugo you demonstrated a power similar to fire, or even the sun. I'm curious. My quirk is called Astral Devastation. It allows me to use astral force. I usually use solar force and lunar force. I understand. Thank you. I would appreciate it. Quirk. I can't erase it. I already tried. Aizawa thought suspiciously. They all simply continued with the journey. Everyone has incredible quirks. Mine only allows me to harden my body. Tell me about it. Mine only lets me throw balls out of my head that are super sticky and only I can peel them off. Mineta would say with comical tears. Quiet down. We've arrived, the teacher ordered, and then everyone got off the bus. The moment they got off they saw a heroine. It was 13. But someone was missing. All Might was missing. 13 would begin to explain the quirks in detail, until a portal appeared, and a horde of villains emerged from it, 2 of whom stood out. One had hands, another had a portal instead of a head, and the third was a giant chicken. Where's All Might? Kurogiri. Scratching his neck. It seems he didn't come. I see. So, let's kill the students to make him come. Kurogiri would obey and teleport in front of the teachers. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kurogiri, and we are the League of Villains. 13. Protect the students. Launching themselves against the villains. 13 would be protecting the students while attacking Kurogiri. This will not be enough. A portal appeared behind her and in front of him, and his attack was immediately returned. 13. Aizawa shouted worriedly from afar. How boring, I said as I lay down on the floor. Well, I guess it wouldn't hurt to have a little fun. Getting up from the ground, he then looked straight at Kurogiri. Wow, so you've got some balls, huh? He said, looking at him. Yes, I have them. It was a mistake for them to come and attack us. They should have investigated the students more thoroughly. Although they wouldn't have found any information about me. What are you talking about? Kurogiri asked. Astral devastation. I leapt in its direction as my fists burned. Kurogiri would become intangible and my attack would have no effect. Weak. Kurogiri said, creating a portal beneath me. Wow, you can become intangible. Then I just need to be faster. Without giving him time to respond, in a burst of speed, I appeared in front of him. Astral devastation. 50% Sol Cruel. Because he was so fast, I thought he wouldn't be able to dodge my attack, but I was wrong, he dodged it. But as he did, I could see that there was a part of him that didn't become intangible. This is the end for you, brat. Appearing through a portal behind me, I could see a hand appear along with a portal, and out of the corner of my eye I could see the subject with the hands put his hand into another portal. Ah! I screamed as I felt my arm being destroyed by the subject's hands. Astral devastation. I started but couldn't finish because of the pain. I managed to see my teacher lunge at the villain and punch him, freeing my arm. Izuku, are you alright? Aizawa asked. Yes, thank you, I said with difficulty, watching as Aizawa continued fighting the villains. Damn it, if I use my Kitsune form, I'll end up revealing who I am. I have no other option. I can only use up to 50% of astral devastation and it still causes me strain. What I'm going to do is something I never thought I'd use. An upgrade of astral devastation, a kind of awakening. The power of astral divinity. This is going to hurt. I stood up and looked towards Kurogiri. Come on if you want to die so badly, he said, appearing behind me with the help of a portal. The instant he appeared, a flurry of attacks struck him directly in the area where he was physically present. After the first blow, Kurogiri became completely tangible due to the force of the initial strike. Astral Divinity 10%. A great combo of blows would reach Kurogiri. The blows could not even be seen, only a white and a yellow trail could be seen. Damn, he couldn't finish because I appeared in front of him. Astral Divinity 10%. Lunar Abyss. A powerful blow, of which only a blue trail would be seen, would impact Kurogiri, knocking him out of combat. Iida, go get help. Aizawa shouted as he was being beaten up by the giant chicken. Iida would nod and run out of USJ. I lunged at the man with the hands before delivering a powerful blow. Today is your end, I said in a terrifying voice, looking in the direction where Shigaraki fell. Damn it, Nomu, he yelled, and the chicken started running towards Izuku. Can't you live without your boyfriend? You're pathetic, she said, Jumping back to dodge the Nomu. Astral Divinity 20%. Consecutive light speed blows. A barrage of brutally fast blows would hit the Nomu, each one creating a hole the size of Izuku's fist, but the Nomu would regenerate. In addition, each blow would cause a slight tremor lasting 5 seconds in the area. So you regenerate, huh? I said in a terrifying voice, ready to torture him before killing him. My Nomu can absorb blows and has regeneration, in addition to incredible strength. You won't be able to defeat him. Shigaraki would shout with a smile. Are you challenging me? I said before slapping the Nomu that was running towards me. The Nomu would fly away but quickly recover and jump towards me. Astral Divinity 50%. Lunar Destruction. After launching the attack, the Nomu would be disintegrated with supreme ease. I expected it to at least withstand that much. What a disappointment. I said, disappointed. Kurogiri. I could see him open 2 portals and disappear into them. The moment that happened, I fell to the ground, exhausted, unable to move. Izuku, are you okay? Chizuru asked me with concern. Bad, very bad. I can't move a single muscle, it hurts. I can barely speak, I said with difficulty while letting out a soft groan of pain as the astral divinity deactivated. Fool, you pushed yourself beyond your limits. You can barely use 50% of astral devastation and it's still taking its toll. And you used a power that surpasses 100% of astral devastation, the power of astral divinity, Chizuru said, her voice filled with concern. I'm sorry, but if I didn't do it, nobody else could. Everything is all right because I'm here. A voice familiar to everyone could be heard. It was All Might who said it. You came very late, I said, glancing at him out of the corner of my eye. Just in time. A voice was heard followed by an explosion that came from the ceiling. What the hell? I looked up and saw 2 silhouettes. Let me introduce myself. My name is Kito. He would introduce himself by climbing down from the roof and landing in front of the tired Izuku. Damn, this is a bad time, I thought, unable to even move a finger. You know, it's amazing to know you're the Kitsune hero. You're incredibly strong, so I decided to bring someone your size. The moment he said that, I looked at Chizuru, who was simply acting normally. Don't worry, I already knew, Chizuru said with a smile. We'll talk about that later. Luckily no one else heard. Everyone was far away and in a fighting stance. Let me introduce you to Hito. He is the legendary Kitsune, the one who was once a test subject, but passed every single one of those tests and was properly trained. He's like you, only without being a flaw, Hito said, staring at me intently. At that moment I knew how the director had those photos. Somehow him and Destroyer had allied himself with those who used me as a lab rat and abandoned me for being a defect. So you're the one who came before me. I'm test subject number 001. He said with an arrogant smile. Looking at her waist, I could see a red, furry tail. That's right. Therefore, I am superior to you, I said mockingly. Hito would frown and lunge towards me. Upon seeing this, All Might would use his power to appear in front of Hito and throw a punch, but Hito would dodge it. Stupid hero. He punched All Might in the stomach, knocking the wind out of him. All Might would fall to the ground disoriented. I knocked down the number 1 hero with a single blow. They all exclaimed in amazement. But don't worry, brat. This is just a warning. Come to think of it, I think I'd rather finish you off somewhere where everyone can see me do it. That would be great, and I'm sure Hito wants the same, doesn't he, Hito? I asked with a smile, receiving a nod. Enjoy the little time you have left, he said, jumping up. The other man would follow him. They would both leave the way they came, which is to say, the roof. Damn it, I have to get stronger. I don't know if I can take on those 2. The green-haired boy thought before falling unconscious from the pain caused by using astral divinity. A week had already passed since the events at USJ. The green-haired boy was still unconscious and showed no signs of waking up. He will wake up, I know it, Momo told the girl next to her. This was Chizuru who was worried. Yes, you're right, he will wake up, Chizuru said with a little more enthusiasm. Do you have any idea who those guys were and what they wanted with Izuku? Momo asked, curious and somewhat worried. No, she lied, which Momo noticed instantly but said nothing. The door would be knocked on, and the girls inside would give a, "Come in." "Hello. Nice to meet you. I'm Detective Tsukauchi. I've come to ask you a few questions." "Go ahead," Momo would say. "Is it true that there was someone capable of defeating the symbol of peace with a single blow?" Tsukauchi asked, receiving a nod. "Do you have any idea who those people were?" Tsukauchi would ask. "The truth is, no." Both would answer. And so the days passed. Classes were paused until further notice. Until finally, after a few weeks, classes resumed. Date: January 15, 2020. "All right, students, I have an announcement to make," Aizawa said in a bored tone. "And what is it, sensei?" Kaminari would ask. "The battle is not over yet." "What? More villains?" The whole class wondered. "That's not it. The sports festival is coming soon." "Festival? Sports? Wait a minute, sensei, what will happen to Izuku-chan?" "He hasn't woken up yet." Tsuyu asked her teacher. "That shouldn't set us back." Aizawa. "Heroes from all over the country are watching the festival. This is your chance to prove to them all that you belong here, so that when you become professionals you can get into their agencies. This is your chance, one of two you'll have in the coming years. You'll have 2 weeks from now to train," Aizawa said before leaving the classroom. "So Izuku won't be participating?" Chizuru wondered, sounding somewhat dejected. "Much better. Finally, I'll be able to stand out. I hope he doesn't wake up," a dwarf with balls on his head would say. "Totally agree. That's what a blue-haired person and an ash-blonde person would say. They're disgusting," Chizuru and Momo would say. "Hey, Momo, I have an offer for you." Chizuru whispers. "Which is it?" "I'll train with you," Chizuru would say. "Are you sure?" I would ask, somewhat suspiciously. "Of course, I want you to get stronger," I would say with a smile. "Okay," Momo would reply with a smile. Time skip. 1 week and 5 days later. There were only 2 days left until the festival started. Both Chizuru and Momo had trained and had become stronger. "Where am I?" the disoriented green-haired boy wondered, having finally woken up after several weeks. Looking to his left, he could see 2 girls, Momo and Chizuru. "Izuku," they both asked in unison before giving him a hug. "What day is it today?" asked the green-haired boy. "Today is January 27th, why?" Momo would ask. "Is there anything relevant?" "Well, we're having a sports festival in 2 days. Lots of heroes and people will be there. It'll be broadcast all over Japan. Isn't that great?" Chizuru asked. It didn't take long for something to click in Izuku's head. "I think I'd rather finish you off somewhere where everyone can see me do it." I remember Kito's words. "Izuku, are you okay?" they both asked. "I'll be right back. I have something to do," he said before getting up from the stretcher and leaving to find the address. "Director," he would exclaim upon seeing him. "Young Izuku, I'm glad you're awake," the rodent said with a smile. "Thanks, but that's not the point. I was going to continue but was interrupted." "Nines. He's finally awake," Mei exclaimed excitedly, giving Izuku a hug. "Mei, I have something to show you," I would say with a smile. "What is it?" I asked. "A suit. Look," handing him a small watch. "But this is a watch," he said before pressing one of the buttons. Then a huge cloud surrounded the green-haired boy, and when it dissipated, he was seen wearing a hero costume. "What is this?" "It's his new hero costume. Do you like it?" I was inspired by the mask he always wears. "And it also has another button, because since he doesn't want anyone to know his identity, I made another costume for him to wear for activities that require it," Mei said excitedly, smiling. "Thank you, Mei. And not only that, it also has a microphone so it can communicate with me or the director if it has any questions," she would say, still smiling. "It sounds interesting. By the way, young Izuku, what was it you were going to tell me?" the principal asked. "That's right. The sports festival will be attacked." As he said that, the director frowned. "Young Hatsume, you may now leave." Saying that, Mei nodded and left the office. "Tell me more." And so the green-haired boy would tell him everything that happened at USJ, without skipping any details. "I must say I already knew some of that from your colleagues, but I appreciate it nonetheless. Unfortunately, all I can do is prepare the heroes for a possible attack, although if it's as you say, we're in trouble." "Yes, it will be difficult," I haven't gotten any stronger yet. Understand? Well, if that's all, you may leave, the rodent said, to which the green-haired boy nodded. A few hours later, the green-haired boy was already back home with Chizuru. Izuku, we need to talk, Chizuru said, to which the green-haired boy swallowed hard. And, I already knew you were the Kitsune hero because of the time you saved me. But at the same time, I want to know if you'll be alright. Chizuru asked worriedly. Don't worry, I will be. I promise, the green-haired boy said, stroking Chizuru's head until she fell asleep. I need to think about what I'm going to do. And finally the days passed, it was already the sports festival. The green-haired boy made the most of those days, but there was still no great progress. Date: January 29, 2020. But anyway, we are now in the 1A classroom room, waiting for your call to start the festival. Hey, you would call Izuku a bi-colored one, who was talking to Momo and Chizuru. Speaks. I challenge you to a duel. If I manage to defeat you, although I know I will, you will give me Momo. The half and half would say, to which Momo frowned. What are you talking about, Todoroki? Momo asked. I get jealous when I see you with him. That's why I want to defeat that guy, so that in the end you'll be mine, Yaoyorozu. The half and half man would say in a serious tone. Todoroki, I only see you as a friend, and even if you win I'd never be with you. Momo would say, but Todoroki insisted. I don't care. Todoroki was going to leave but he was stopped. I refuse. Momo isn't an object. She's conscious and can live whatever life she chooses. For you to come and interrupt that freedom is disgusting. I rejected the duel, but I still promise to crush you. Izuku said, and the half and half continued on his way. The room fell silent, until finally a voice was heard through some speakers. Class 1A, report to the stadium. Elsewhere, how's the process going? I'd ask Kito. Okay, the legendary Kitsune DNA dosage is 95% complete. I estimate it will be ready in a few hours. A person in a lab coat might say this. Thank you. I would appreciate it, Kito. In a remote place in space. Foo, my intuition says that someone thinks I am. A female voice would be heard, she would open her eyes and look in a specific direction. I hate imposters, I'll make sure to go after the. But first I'll enjoy these sweets. She said while eating some sweets. What's up, audience? How are you all doing? The present mic would shout. Good. The audience would respond. Before we begin the festival, we need to introduce the classes. Right, Aizawa, one way or the other. First, the Hero Class 1A. The audience would begin to make more noise. The Hero Class 1B. And finally, the Support Course and General Courses. I finished presenting the classes. Could you stop making so much noise, present? Aizawa said in a tired tone. Class 1A was already coming out of the tunnel, followed by the other classes that were called. Now, the event's presenter will be in charge of giving the details for the test. And it is Midnight Heroine. Upon saying that, Midnight would appear and many men would begin to drool, with the exception of a few. Before we begin, Izuku Midoriya, please come forward to say a few words. As the top scorer on the entrance exam and the class president, he has the right to do so. How boring. Can't someone else go? Izuku would say, receiving boos from the audience. Get him out of the festival. One would say, and, okay, I'll give the speech, Momo said, approaching the speaker and clearing her throat. Today, January 29, 2020, the sports festival is being held, where young aspiring heroes will prove their worth. Each of them will strive to the utmost to win this festival. I, Momo Yaoyorozu, promise to give my all only if you promise to support each and every one of us, including the support classes and general education classes who also work hard. After delivering her speech, everything fell silent, then applause erupted. Both the audience and the other classes were supporting Momo. See, idiot, take your classmate as an example. One of them said to Izuku, who simply ignored him. Of course we will support them. Most of the audience would say. After those words, let's begin the festival. The first event will be an obstacle course. Everyone would take their positions, ready to begin the test. Midnight would give the signal, and when he did that everyone would start running, until they were stopped by Todoroki, who froze the ground. I won't let you beat me. That's what Todoroki said before he started using his ice to move at greater speed. Interesting. You're smart, Todoroki, but not smart enough. The ice would begin to warm up until it simply turned into water, and then the water evaporated. Astral devastation 25%. Astral propulsion. The green-haired boy, in a flash of speed, would begin to run, leaving everyone behind. When he was about to reach the top spots, he realized something. So those girls who were in the entrance exam got into class 1B. He said, then caught up with the crimson-haired girl and the black-haired girl. He continued like this until he finally reached the first obstacle. Well, robots. They're the same ones from the entrance exam, huh? He said, looking at them closely. Before entering UA, I didn't want to attract any attention, but that doesn't matter anymore. I have to make all these people trust me once they attack the festival, otherwise, it will be much worse when they realize that not even their symbol can save them. Astral devastation 25%. Solar flash. From the green-haired man's fingers, a solar bullet would shoot out in a flash, impacting the robot and causing it to explode. The other robots would then be affected in a chain reaction explosion that would end up destroying them all. Taking advantage of everyone's momentary shock, Izuku would start running, maintaining the speed with which he had started running earlier. Everyone was very surprised, from the audience to the other classes, who stopped running because of the surprise. There were 3 boys whose jaws dropped to the floor. These were Mirio, Kamaki, and Najire. It's a monster. Mineta would say, stopping his run. What monster are you talking about? I could do it better than him, said an angry ash-haired man. Everyone reacted to what the ash-haired man said and continued running. What is this, Aizawa? What are you feeding your students? Present would ask. I have no idea, I'll just say one thing. Izuku is the strongest in Class 1A on his own merits, and with a strict training regimen, he's likely to become a great hero. Aizawa said in his bored tone. After a few seconds, the green-haired boy would encounter the next obstacle. So, an abyss, huh? It could have been better. In fact, I would create a much better abyss. The green-haired man said in a sinister tone, taking a great leap to the other side of the abyss. What did he say? That's what Present wondered before opening his eyes in immense surprise upon noticing the green-haired boy's intention. Astral devastation 50%. Destruction. He couldn't finish because he was interrupted. Wait, don't do it. Present and Aizawa said in unison. They take the fun out of life, Izuku and the audience said in unison. Izuku continued running, heeding the advice of those mentioned above, and it wasn't long before he finally reached the last obstacle. Minefields. Whatever, he said, running so fast that the mines exploded, but by the time that happened, he was already far enough ahead not to be affected. And so he came in first in the obstacle course. The winner is Izuku, exclaimed Present Mike. After that, a few minutes passed before the others began to arrive. As they arrived, Izuku noticed something else. Wow, so the girls I saved that day are in general education classes, huh? He said, looking at 5 sisters. There's also that blonde I saved from Katsuki, I think her name was Mami Nanami, looking at the blonde, and that's how the positions ended up. 1. Izuku. 2. Rias Gramori, she was able to create a magic circle but had to be nerfed muahahaha. 3. Akano Himahima, just like you. 4. Chizuru Ichinos. 5. Bakugo Katsuki. 6. Todoroki Shoto. 8. Momo Yaoyorozu. 10. Kyoka Juro. 12. Kendo Itsuka. 13. Hatsume Mei. 14. Yotsuba Nakano. 15. Miku Nakano. 16. Nino Nakano. 17. Itsuki Nakano. 18. Aikika Nakano. There are positions missing, but I'll leave them like this. After this test comes a break for everyone to rest. I would say, present, followed by all the classes going to the cafeteria to eat something and rest. Obviously, it's not going to be a break where you don't rest. During the break, Izuku was preparing for the next test. After a few minutes the break ended and everyone went outside ready for their next test. Midnight would spin the roulette wheel and it would land on cavalry battle. After saying that, he began to explain the test and the points each person had earned in the previous test, saying that first place, meaning Izuku, had 10 million points. Many people would start watching since they wanted to take his points, but Izuku would speak. If you plan to intimidate me with such a pathetic look, let me tell you, you're way off track. With that look, you couldn't intimidate an ant. Izuku said mockingly. What did you say, you bastard? Someone from general education courses would say. You can't say much, perhaps your gaze is the most pathetic in this whole place. Approaching him, why don't you pick on someone your own size? Said a boy from class 1B, this was Tetsu. You, someone my size. Don't make me laugh, I'd say, looking at him arrogantly. Tetsu would simply withdraw and Midnight would finish speaking. After that, everyone would start to work as a team. The green-haired boy could see that no one wanted to get hold of him. This could have been for two reasons. 1. Because he had 10 million points and was everyone's target, or 2. Because everyone now had a desire to crush him for what he said earlier. Or maybe, it was both. Even so, there were some girls who wanted to team up with him. These were Mei Hatsume, Chizuru Ichinos and Momo Yaoyorozu. So, do you agree to team up with us? Momo would ask. Okay, it's not like I care who's on my team, the green-haired boy said, accepting. The moment the test began, everyone went after the green-haired boy. But he easily dodged them and avoided any contact with his gang of 10 million. Amazing. Present Mike would say, amazed. He's dodging them as if they were nothing and avoiding any kind of contact. I see. Aizawa must have a memory. Flashback. December 1, 2019. It was a rainy day, around 11 p.m. Eraserhead was with some heroes and some police cars, each of them surrounding a masked man. Nines, this is the day you'll be caught. Surrender, you're surrounded, Aizawa said, only to hear a few laughs from Nines. Trapped, do you really think so? I only see 2 more run-of-the-mill heroes and Eraserhead. Can't you see the police or what? Does the mask prevent you from seeing properly? Aizawa said with a hint of mockery. What police? Upon hearing that, Eraserhead looked from right to left only to see that they were unconscious. I see. He lunged to attack him but couldn't land a single blow. The 2 heroes would also launch an attack on him, but none of the 3 heroes managed to even touch him. The 2 run-of-the-mill heroes tried to remove Nine's mask, but he always avoided any contact, no matter how small. With great ease, the green-haired man would knock out both heroes, leaving only Eraserhead. Looks like this was a failed attempt, isn't it, Eraserhead? Said the green-haired man, delivering a blow that would cause Eraser to lose his balance and fall to the ground. It seems that's the case. But still, I promise you that one day I'll catch him. Keep trying until then, he said, skipping away. End of flashback. That ability to dodge blows like that, I recognize it. It's you, Nines, Aizawa thought, watching the green-haired boy. At one point in the fight, Team Todoroki carried out a plan using Iida. But Iida's speed was little compared to that of the green-haired man, who with a simple blow to the neck would render him unconscious. At that point, the test ended, and the final standings were as follows. 1. Equipo Izuku, Momo Yaoyorozu, Mei Hatsume, Chizuru Ichinos, Izuku. 2. Equipo Todoroki, Shoto, Uraraka, Iida, Kaminari. 3. Bakugo Team, Bakugo Katsuki, Hiroshima Ejiro, Shiro, Mina. 4. Equipo Shinso, Tokiyami, Tetsu, Abara. Okay, those were the winners of the race. Now you'll be given some rest time. With that said, everyone went to their rest areas. On his way to his rest area, the green-haired boy heard a familiar voice. So you came here to ruin my day, you pathetic flaw. If you're thinking of coming back to us, let me tell you, that's not going to happen. A voice familiar to Izuku would be present. The green-haired boy turned around, seeing 3 people in front of him. They were Hisashi Midoriya, Inko Midoriya, and finally, a stranger. Peef, ha ha ha, I haven't laughed like that in ages. Did you really think I wanted to come back to you guys? I don't even know what you're doing here. The green-haired boy said, laughing. I asked All Might to give our son a spot in the festival. He agreed and told us he'd be participating as a guest of honor to introduce one of the most promising future heroes. Although that doesn't matter to you, In the end you're just a flaw, Hisashi would say mockingly. Son, didn't you two separate? Izuku asked. That's none of your business, but I'll tell you anyway to make you jealous. I talked to Hisashi about the idea of coming back, and he agreed on the condition that I adopt a child. And he ended up being the one chosen. I just had to use some contact lenses and a wig to make him look like me. Inko said mockingly, thinking it would provoke some jealousy in the green-haired boy. Interesting. What's your name? Izuku asked the boy. What's it to you, bastard? Wow, you could kiss your mother with that mouth. I mean, what a temper. She reminds me of someone. Thinking of a certain ash-blonde guy. Show some respect to my mother, you insolent brat. The boy said, approaching Izuku, not exactly with good intentions. As you wish, he said, beginning to leave. Damn you, I'll crush you in the next test. You'll beg to be never born. Midoriya's son would say. By the way, how did he get into UA? That's what Hisashi wondered. It can't be anything, I'm probably taking general education classes or something. He said, walking in the opposite direction from Izuku. As Izuku walked through the hallways, he could see a dwarf with balls saying something to the girls. Our teacher said they had to be cheerleaders. Mineta said, trying to hide his perverted smile. Are you sure? Hagakure would ask. Yes, very sure, Mineta said, a small drop of blood falling from his nose. Minoru Mineta, you have 5 seconds to leave here and it's already been 3. Saying that, the bald-headed guy ran away from the place. Carry on with what you're doing. Getting out of there. Yes, the girls would say with a smile. After that they would be called in since the break was over. Let's begin the final test. Present would say excitedly, and the final test is Battle Royale, just like the name suggests. Everyone will enter a closed area and fight in a free-for-all. The last one standing will be the winner. Midnight would explain. Finally, we have a special participant. The number 1 hero and symbol of peace, All Might, recommended him and spoke very highly of him. This boy's name is. Everyone was silent, waiting for the boy's name. His Midoriya. This boy is a very promising hero, being Firemouth's son. Midnight would introduce him. Let's begin the final test of the festival. As he said that, the floor where those who passed the previous test were, and where his was also, would open up and everyone would fall into a combat arena that looked like an underground coliseum. The moment they hit the ground, it would be filled with mountains of ice. Izuku could see 2 attacks heading towards him. Die. It's the end for you, Izuku. These were Bakugo Katsuki and Todoroki Shoto. Wow, it seems 2 promising students have gone after the strongest student. This is definitely unfair. That's what Present said, only for the stadium to fall silent, waiting for the move with which the green-haired boy would respond. Unfair. It's unfair. But to them, he said, lunging at both boys and punching each of them several times in the stomach. After delivering those blows, Bakugo Katsuki and Todoroki Shoto would be the first to be defeated. Impossible. The son of the N2 hero, Endeavor, has been defeated. This must be a huge blow to his pride. Present would say, watching the fight with wide eyes. Izuku would continue fighting in the Battle Royale. The fights didn't last long, only 5 minutes had passed and there were barely 3 left in the arena. Only Chizuru, me, and lastly, his Midoriya remained. Watching his who was waiting for any move from Izuku. Wow, you're stronger than my parents said. But that doesn't change the fact that you're just a useless, defective quirkless kid. He said, launching himself towards Izuku. Useless. Defective. Those are words I haven't heard in a while. Still, it bothers me that you think you're better than me. Let me show you a little of my power. The green-haired boy said, baring his teeth. Izuku was about to launch himself towards his, but his moved at great speed and changed course, appearing behind Izuku. He's fast. By the time I turn around he'll hit me, damn it. The green-haired boy thought, but he didn't feel any impact, he only heard something crashing into a wall, like bones breaking. The green-haired boy would open his eyes and see how Chizuru had received the blow. Wow, she's an idiot. Look what happened to her trying to save you, you useless thing. She said mockingly to Izuku, whose expression was dark. Repeat what you said, the green-haired boy whispered in a deep voice. She's stupid for wanting to save you. Didn't you understand? Should I explain it to you in simple terms? I asked mockingly and arrogantly. From one moment to the next, the weather would darken and the clouds would cover the sun. Do you think I'm afraid of the night? Don't be ridiculous, he said, receiving no reply. In a deep, serious tone, he would pronounce the following words: astral devastation 50%, astral fury. The moment he said that, his eyes would turn red and solar blasts would come out of them, each one generating an immense explosion. The explosion would occupy almost the entire arena, with the exception of the place where Chizuru had fallen. As the smoke cleared, he saw those red eyes still staring at him, causing him to back away. Damn, that attack was very powerful. My whole body hurts. I see you were able to survive my most powerful attack. The question is, can you withstand it again? Upon hearing that, the eyes of the entire audience went in shock. They thought that the green-haired boy could do nothing more after launching such a powerful attack. Another one. Don't make me laugh. I doubt you can launch another attack like that, he said mockingly. Retame, he said, preparing to throw another attack. The moment he saw that, he was scared, very scared, and it caused him to faint. What a coward. That's what the green-haired boy said as he approached Chizuru. The winner of the festival is Izuku, I would say with a big smile. Chizuru, let's go home. The festival is over. As she said that, a voice made itself known. And the real show is just beginning, said a voice that could be heard in the sky. The green-haired boy looked up and saw two figures. They were Kido. The green-haired boy thought, getting into a fighting stance. Let the show begin. Let the show begin, Kido would say, dashing off in the direction of Izuku. Izuku wouldn't have time to react and would receive the full impact. Come on, get up. You haven't seen any of my power yet, Kido would say arrogantly. He's very strong. He got up with difficulty. The crowd was in shock. The heroes among them began to slowly evacuate them in an attempt to avoid alerting the supposed villain. Did they really think I wouldn't notice? Launching an attack towards the stands. This would hit the stands, killing many people. Upon seeing that, Izuku would be shocked. It's your turn, Kido said, slowly approaching Izuku. Just as Kido was about to hit Izuku, he had to take a hard blow to his back. Astral devastation 25%, solar punch. A female voice would say, launching her attack. Both Izuku and Chizuru were shocked to see that he hadn't even been scratched. How boring. They can't do anything to me, they're too weak. I know. Since they're going to die anyway, what do you think if I show them something? Without waiting for a response, an aura would completely cover him. It wasn't even a minute before she disappeared, revealing something strange. It was Kido, but she had 3 tails at her waist, but that wasn't the strange part. The strange part was that parts of her body were deformed. She seemed unstable. What do you think? Isn't this the best thing you've ever seen in your lives? Ha 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 ha. He laughed confidently and loudly. The heroes must be getting everyone out of the stands and taking them to a safer place. When that happens, I'll be able to fight. That's what Izuku thought. As for Hito, he hasn't made a move. He's just watching us from above, glancing slightly towards where he was. Chizuru would seize the moment and force all the power of the astral devastation into her right arm in order to defeat him. Izuku, I'll make sure to defeat him so you come out unharmed. I'll make sure to protect you just as you would protect me. Flashback 1. A few years ago. Have Chizuru. I still remember the day Izuku came into my life. That day he was sleeping. I sat down next to the bed waiting for him to wake up. Where am I? I asked myself upon waking. I see you're awake now, I said, observing him. What's your name? I asked the questions. I said with superiority. How did you manage to survive that accident, only losing consciousness? What is your gift? I don't have a gift. I guess I survived by luck, said the green-haired man. You don't have a quirk either? I asked in a low voice, feeling identified with him. No, I don't have one. I thought I'd never find someone like me. I started to cry. After that we gradually grew closer. You helped me through difficult times and were always there for me, Izuku. Flashback 2. A few years ago. Izuku-chan. I got up from the floor, wiping away some tears. Chizuru-chan. I saw that she was excited to see me, Then she hugged me with a small smile. I'm happy to hear you're well. I'm glad you're okay too, he said. I love you, Izuku-chan. I whispered shyly. I love you too, Chizuru-chan. End of flashback. You risked your life to save me. You're definitely the best, Izuku. You're definitely the best person in this world. And the person I fell in love with. Astral devastation. 100%. Destroyer of suns. Upon uttering those words, Chizuru would shoot towards Kido, who was unaware. Just seconds before impact, Chizuru saw Kido smile and utter the following words. Black hole. The powerful attack would create a tornado of darkness that would cause Chizuru to spin all over it. No matter what happens, I will always love you, Izuku. I love you, Izuku. Exclaimed the brunette with a smile on her face as tears streamed from her eyes. Chizuru, shouted the green-haired boy, jumping up to try and save her. Die, Kido would say, and in an instant, the tornado would disappear. Izuku would see that there was no trace of Chizuru once the tornado had dispersed. Tears streamed from his eyes. The boy couldn't control his tears. At that moment, he began to feel weak. While the green-haired boy cried, two female figures appeared in what seemed to be a magic circle. Well, it seems two stupid insects chose the path of death. Kido said, slowly approaching them. You, really, I'm Rias Grimori, in case you didn't know. She would introduce herself arrogantly. You know what? I hate arrogant people. I detest them. He started walking towards both girls. What did you come here to do? He asked, stopping just a few steps away from them. We couldn't just stand by and do nothing. Rias said, getting into a fighting stance. We won't allow you to hurt anyone else. Akeno would say, also getting into a fighting stance. Ha ha ha. You, don't make me laugh. You should have stayed away from this, now you'll die. Without letting Kido do anything else, both girls launched two powerful attacks towards Kido. The attack by both would cause a large cloud of dust. It was easier than I thought. I would say with a big, proud smile. Easy, easy, easy. It would have been better if they had never said that. A voice said from within the cloud of dust, causing both of them to go on guard. It seems you withstood our attack. The question is, can you withstand it again? Rias said, preparing her attack, as did Akeno. He dies, creating an intense dark fire and throwing it towards both girls. The fire would have hit both of them if it weren't for. A few seconds ago, the green-haired boy continued to cry inconsolably. He hadn't moved an inch. You can't just leave like that, can you, Chizuru? How can you leave after saying you loved me? Why, Chizuru? Her voice broke more and more as she spoke. Suddenly, everything went dark. Everything had disappeared. It must be painful, right? A voice was heard amidst all the darkness. You have no idea, she said, her head bowed as she continued to cry. Especially, because you loved her. To be continued. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and make sure to like and please hype this video. Now we will see you in the next video.